This is one of those pinch-yourself moments because Time Team is investigating one of the most important archaeological sites in the country. It's a place I've always been absolutely besotted by, Sutton Hoo. Our excavation is in Garden Field, a short distance from the famous Royal Burial Ground, where a vast Anglo Saxon warrior king's ship was found in 1939, packed full of treasures. Over the years, the site's revealed archaeology from the Neolithic right through to the Second World War, including an Anglo Saxon cemetery under the Visitor Centre, just next door to where we're going to dig. So we're hoping to find out how big this cemetery was, but also to find out why a piece of Iron Age farmland should have been chosen as the burial ground for Anglo Saxon royalty. Sutton Hoo is in East Anglia, on the other side of the River Deben from Woodbridge, a town with a history of boat building going back to the Middle Ages. In the 7th century, this area was within the Anglo-Saxon kingdom of the Waffings, the royal dynasty whose exploits may have contributed to the legends of Beowulf and whose descendants are possibly buried at Sutton Hoo. This whole field here is called the Royal Burial Ground. You can see why. See that tantalising large mound over there, and just down there there's a lower one in front of it, and there's our website team. Hi guys! That wasn't rehearsed, by the way. And over here, behind the cameraman, we've got this other low mound there, another mound there. But here, this one here, this is the pièce de résistance. This is the mound where Basil Brown excavated in the late 1930s and found a vast Anglo-Saxon ship burial full of fantastic treasure, fit for a king. Not a bad sight, is it? Brown's genius was that he recognised and preserved the ghostly imprint of a great ship in the sand. And this led the archaeologists to a burial chamber filled with treasure as a memorial to the great king within. In the 1960s, Rupert Bruce Mitford returned and meticulously finished the job Brown had started. 20 years later, Martin Carver excavated 7 mounds, 2 of which were previously unknown, clusters of late execution burials fossilised in the sand, and underneath all this, prehistoric farmland. In the 2000s, archaeologists made another exciting new discovery. At the other end of the site, underneath this visitors centre, right where I'm walking towards now, they've uncovered an earlier Anglo-Saxon cemetery and more prehistoric field systems. 32 graves were identified, a mix of inhumation and cremation burials centred around a Bronze Age barrow. And the theory is that the cemetery extends into the field next door. And that's where Time Team came in. John and Jimmy brought in the latest geophysical equipment to survey the Royal Burial Ground and Garden Field next to the Visitors Centre.
They've got the same kind of pattern as on the Royal Burial Ground, in the sense that the ground has been lowered to make the mounds, if you see what I mean. And so it does look quite convincing.
Well, we'll see. Yeah, when we get there all together.
So preparations began for a new 2-year project. In all my years exploring archaeology, I never ever thought that I would get a chance to be involved with an excavation of Sutton Hoo. That is so exciting.
So we're ground truthing, what we're seeing on here, which is to see whether they really are cremation pits or inhumations or something completely different.
And for Helen, this was a chance to return to the site which had been part of her life since 1987.
It's a tantalising piece of the jigsaw puzzle that we've always known a bit about, but to be able to find something properly concrete out about it is amazing.
Fast forward to June 2024, and we're finally ready to get digging with a crack team of archaeologists that are thoroughly familiar with the challenging nature of this sandy site, because they dug with Helen 40 years ago. Justin Garner-Lahire returns as the site director, and Madeline Humler is the authority on prehistoric Sutton Hoo. And they'll be joined by other experts from Martin's original team, who've jumped at the chance to return to dig at Sutton Hoo for the 4 weeks we'll be here.
How does it feel?
It feels very good, actually. The question is, do we have something else to find? Yes, of course. Should we then just hack into a new mound? No, because we need to keep for the future things we know about. So it's been aimed at something we're a bit puzzled by, which is the finds in Garden Field.
What were the finds that puzzled you?
A gold coin of Honorius was picked up by a metal detectorist.
So what date's that?
Well, that's going to be in the early 5th century. And then they got the handle and part of the body of a bucket. And they got enough of the bucket to show what the pattern was on the outside. So the pattern shows a sort of hunt in progress. And this is the hunt of the wild boar.
This extremely rare bucket is thought to have contained the cremated remains of a rich Anglo Saxon. As it's got similarities with the earliest cremations in the royal burial ground, this person might be a crucial player in the story of the development of Sutton Hoo. So we're metal detecting the whole area to try to locate and rescue the rest of the bucket and any associated burial.
I'm getting signals at times of around 87, 88, which is a perfect signal for non-ferrous. But as I say, if it's just this rounded shape of ferrous, then the signal jumps around and doesn't give you a true one. So this could be what we're looking for, or it may be a horseshoe.
The geophys of Garden Field revealed lots of intriguing targets, but following the guiding principles of archaeology, we're working from the known, the cemetery under the visitor centre, to the unknown in Garden Field.
Now, this is where we are in the dome at the moment. This is the small water pipe, and this is where we're putting the trench.
And we're putting it adjacent to the water pipe because that means we're not disturbing virgin territory, as it were.
That's it. It'll give us a window into the ground.
Yeah.
And what it means is, as we go forward, we can start to understand the geophysical anomalies and plan where to put future trenches.
Yeah.
We've got a series of ditches crisscrossing the field. These are probably Bronze Age, Iron Age boundary ditches. That, by the way, is an old stream channel cutting across there.
But dry now.
Dry now, yeah, totally. Finally get to the bits of interest, and you can see these concentration of blobs in this corner.
Oh, they're all there. There's not very many there, and nothing at that far side of the field.
These are all indicating either iron objects or these slightly different responses. They could be burials. You get a curved response, and that suggests it's a pit. Now, whether the pit has got a cremation urn in, a burial, we don't know. We can't detect bones still, and the urns are too small.
Is the ferrous stuff likely just to be gear discarded in the field, or does it have the potential for being Anglo-Saxon?
It has the potential for being, of archaeological interest.
Finally, we're ready to get going. And Matt joins co-director Cecily at the business end of Justin's digger.
So we've got to keep an eye out for basically
molten
big
stuff,
molten stuff and burnt stuff.
Care of, but
You're not using the same kind of archaeology which I've always been involved with in television before.
Right. Well, that's true. And I think it's an original type of archaeology in some ways that we developed at Sutton Hoo ourselves. We're trying to get the maximum information for the minimum destruction of the resource. So Sutton Hoo has made me at least understand very clearly that you don't get a second shot at these things. No. They only built so many burial mounds. They only built so many prehistoric fields. So what we're trying to do is to squeeze the maximum amount of information out. And obviously that does take longer, and it also takes a lot of different techniques. So we always dig by refining, cleaning the surface, then spraying it, then going up into a tower, looking down from the tower, and then we can start to see the variations. So some of those variations won't be anything, and some will turn into really important things. Cremation graves, inhumation graves, and hopefully a few prehistoric houses as well. So it's just, you can easily lose them. If you get too bold, you can lose them.
So it takes the best part of a day to get the turf off, ready for the second part of the process, which involves something I don't think I've seen used on a time team dig before, a toothed bucket.
A tooth bucket, you're right, it's unusual, but we're going to use that to riddle the surface now the turf's been removed. So the methodology that we're going to deploy is that we're going to break up the full surface of this trench, and then we're going to go over it with a metal detector and locate any metal finds, well, non-ferrous finds. Then we're going to water the surface to improve visibility, and then field walk the surface that we've created. So we'll be on the lookout for pieces of flint, potentially pieces of prehistoric pottery. And the reason that we're using this methodology, because it's quite slow and it's very careful, is that the location of finds within the plough soil can remain significant.
Every find will be precious as we carefully peel back the layers of sandy soil. And Matt's already got his eye in.
This is prehistoric. I know they've had Bronze Age finds here, so it could well be Bronze Age. That said, it's a flake. It could be a bit of a flake. So what you've got to have there is the little bulb there, it's been struck off. So it would have been a flake probably about that big, maybe 10 or 15 centimetres long. Here we are.
There we go, trying to let it blow away.
Yeah, it's getting breezy now, isn't it?
Once the soil's broken up, Keith steps in with the metal detector and finds not only a piece of pottery, but also a small piece of copper alloy.
We heard a rumour, Keith, that you had found something, possibly part of a bucket.
And I've got a similar signal to that just here.
Oh, it's the right kind of thickness.
The reason why you'd think that's a bit of bucket is because it's a flat piece of bronze, basically. There's no kind of diagnostic edge to it or decoration or anything like that.
No, it's flat, it's thin. I mean, you've just left that bit of adhering soil on, haven't you? There's no, we don't think there's anything underneath that necessarily. But it's flat and it's thin. And the only things that I could think of would be diagnostic, would be if we could get Derek to do some XRF on it, because it ought to be 20% zinc if it's part of this bucket that was found in this field. And what about comparing it to the existing bits of bucket?
Well, we can't get the one out that's in the exhibition case, but we do have some bits of the original bucket which we couldn't reattach. So we've got a comparison we can do the XRF on, and maybe just a comparison of colour, etc.
Yeah, it's quite light compared to what the current one looks like. It's quite a dark green, isn't it?
Yeah,
but that was found found in 1988, and
had a bit of polishing.
Ah, okay.
Just next door to where he found this piece, Keith's got another similar signal and another piece of copper alloy.
I think rather than poking at it with my fingernail, I'd like that to be dried and brushed. What do you think?
Once the metal finds have been bagged, the area is watered to make it easier to spot finds. If any of these are part of the Broomswell bucket, Angela Kerr-Evans might recognise them, as she worked on the conservation of the bucket at the British Museum in the 1990s.
So this is the actual Broomswell bucket.
Yeah.
It was found in Garden Field in 1986 on the end of a harrow.
Yeah.
And this is the reconstruction
Yes.
of the whole thing,
Yeah.
with its base, with a complete handle in
Yeah.
place, and the brassy, shiny
yeah.
colour.
Yes, it would be interesting to know to what extent it would have been quite so brassy by the time it reached here and, put in the grave.
Every time I see it, I'm astounded at how big it is. In my
Yes.
memory, it shrinks down to the size of a more normal Anglo Saxon bucket, but it's much bigger, isn't it?
It is quite big, and yet, it's really fragile when you look at the thickness of the walls of it. I mean,
Yes, paper thin,
it's
really.
paper thin.
Yes.
Yeah, it's extraordinary. I mean, the thing about it is that the punch work is so delicate, and you've got this tiny annular punch picking out details, and then you have this almost free-form inscribed bodywork, so that the bodies almost seem to be moving.
Yes.
And the animals are so exciting
Alive
as well. They're
yes,
very alive.
and energetic.
Yeah.
So I can see one of the animals here.
Yeah.
I can just see its paws, and then it's looking back over its shoulder.
Shoulder.
The figures, with that kind of the way they've done the hair,
Yeah.
looks almost African.
Oh, absolutely.
So
yes, absolutely.
are these figures supposed to be barbarians, like the English were to the Romans and the Greeks, or are they supposed to be
exotic,
or are they supposed to be just ordinary members of the Roman Empire?
Yeah. Who knows?
Who knows?
Yes.
One of the things that we do know, we might not know exactly where it was made, might not know how it made its way to Britain, but I gather from the inscription that we do know that it's 6th century because of the letter forms.
Yeah, that's very interesting.
I'm particularly interested in this handle though, because it's missing one end.
It's missing one end, and it's very heavy.
Yes.
It's a very heavy piece of bronze, and it makes me wonder whether it could be a replacement. It does have quite a bit of wear on it, but the actual handle fixings, the one that survives anyway,
flimsy.
It's very flimsy, and
that break is really fresh.
Yeah.
The rest of that handle is somewhere out
Yeah,
there.
it
And
could be.
while I'm not sure that the bottom would survive to be found, I'm pretty sure
a piece
that
of
other
the
end
handle
would.
should survive, and it would be very identifiable too.
Yes.
You couldn't miss that.
This is one of 12 similar buckets, all of which may have been made in the same workshop somewhere in Byzantium, the Greek-speaking eastern half of the Roman Empire.
It's actually a Byzantine officer's bath bucket, so something you take on campaign.
What do you mean by a bath bucket?
Well, you send the servant off to get a bucket, get a lot of water.
Oh, I see. Yeah,
you put your foot in it, wash your hands, face, shave, and that's a lovely object, beautiful object. So we now know quite a lot about what it looks like, and it's got an incised inscription all the way around, and it says something like good health to you who use it. A bit longer than that, but that's the idea.
One theory is that the East Angles were being recruited as early as the 6th century to fight alongside the Byzantine army after the fall of the Western Roman Empire. So maybe this bucket belonged to one of these recruits. And if the bottom of it's still underground and holds cremated remains, it's just possible the latest techniques will enable us to prove or disprove this theory.
Different people are good at picking up different things, which is why everybody is working across the transect. So I'm going to have a crack at this bit over here.
This process is rooted in the careful work of Basil Brown himself, whose methodical excavation ensured that the delicate outline of the great ship was preserved. And it's already revealing tiny fragments that could mean a cremation is nearby.
And what about the charcoal stuff? Does that go in as well?
It's a process that Helen cut her teeth on in the 1980s.
I first came here as a first-year undergraduate in the summer as my field experience. I signed up for 5 weeks, and then when that came to the end, I went home for a week and missed it so much I came straight back. And this is really where I learnt my troweling and my shoveling. I learnt how to survey. I learnt a lot about finds. I've just done so much here over the years. And then, of course, when it came to the National Trust, I was already by that point going out with the National Trust's regional archaeologist, and we later got married.
The 80s dig revealed 18 mounds, all raised within 100 years. The earliest, Mound 5, dates to the later 6th century, and it's the grave of a young man. He died a violent death before being buried in a bronze bowl surrounded by artefacts of a warrior, but no weapons. A similar style of cremation burial was found in 4 other mounds. Towards the end of the century, the fashion changed to inhumations, and the earliest of these was found in Mound 17, which was only discovered by chance when Martin was practicing his golf skills.
I was on top of the Mound 1. I kept trying to get it to stay under the tree, and I always fall short, and the ball always rolled forward. So after about 100 attempts, I finally twigged that this was a mound. That's why, therefore the ball wouldn't stay in position.
This was Mound 17, the last mound to be excavated in the last month of the final year. And inside was the biggest surprise of the dig. 2 graves, the first containing a young warrior buried in a log coffin, and in the second was his horse.
The horse was just on his own in his pit, but the boy was buried with full, I suppose, adult things like a sword. He was lying on top of a shield. He was in a coffin. He had buckles, belts, beautiful jewels and strap ends, these sorts of things. He had the harness of his horse in with him, and the harness was also really highly decorated. The bit I loved was the fact that the harness ends had gold human type decorations, and the humans always had animal decorations on theirs. So I found that interesting. I don't know whether it means anything.
Because the archaeology here is so delicate, Annette and others were suspended over the trenches on mattresses so they could work without touching the fragile sides of the trench. And the methodology paid off because they revealed one of the richest and most interesting horse and rider graves in Britain.
But the most intriguing part of this burial for me is the fact that he's got a little bag with some lamb chops in, presumably for his journey into the afterlife.
The tableau in each mound was deliberately designed by the living to continue the legends of the dead, and they became more and more spectacular, culminating in the ship burial in Mound 1.
Each of these barrows would have been named after the person buried here, which is why I think we should call this one Radwolderslow, much better than Mound 1.
Radwold's burial chamber tells the story of a hero warrior who died at a time of transition from pagan to Christian belief systems and rituals. And among all the gold and garnet bling was a lyre.
It recognises its ancestor. That's really something, isn't it? This was the king's own instrument. He would have played this to the accompaniment of the poetry, which was, of course, the main medium in those days, before the coming of the technology of the book, although it's arrived during his time. But he obviously loved the poetry, and it was a central medium.
The epic poetry of Beowulf was written down a century after the great ship's burial. But the opening passage evokes a king's funeral as he's pushed out to sea in a vast ship. Sound familiar?
There at Hooder stood, Hringet Stevner, easy and Utfus, Adelinges far.
Basil Brown's discovery forced historians to reinterpret these poems as more than just legends. Because the ship and burial chamber within Mound 1 were evidence that great warrior kings weren't just the stuff of fiction, and maybe the Dark Ages weren't so dark after all. And the cemetery we're investigating could reveal the prequel to these legends. Not all the mounds were excavated in the 1980s, and it's possible that there are many more yet to be discovered.
The latest work we've done, and with Jimmy's radar, over the Royal Mounds, we've got some really nice results. Ignore this strong anomaly here.
Now that looks pretty promising.
Yeah, but that's where Helen and her fellow diggers 40 years ago held a bonfire every night after the day's work.
They didn't think of the future, did they?
No, so we're mapping things from 40 years ago. Yeah. So moving on, and seriously, the mounds don't have big ditches around them, so you don't get very strong responses. They're subtle changes. And what's exciting is in this area here, away from the mapped mounds, we've got this ring. Now, Bradford University did some work a few years ago. They spotted that with a different technique, but they thought it was related to the World War II anti-glider trenches, probably some related activity. But I'm convinced that this could be another mound.
The technology of geophys is changing all the time, and the hope is that new developments might one day allow us to see inside the mounds without any excavation, to discover more stories about the people remembered inside them.
Join a thriving worldwide community of Time Team fans on Patreon.
This will enable us to continue expanding the Time Team world. Enjoy front row seats for the greatest show on Earth and under it.
By day 3, we're into the swing of the dig, and our osteoarchaeologist, Jackie McKinley, has arrived to help spot the signs of burials in this difficult sandy soil.
Jackie, yesterday we got very excited because we thought we had a piece of cremated bone. Well, I gather you know that it's not.
Yeah, I mean, I looked at this earlier, and one, it's not cremated. Secondly, it's not human. And thirdly, I don't think it's even bone. I think this is a piece of natural material. I think it's like a fossil type thing.
Well, I think I would be able to explain that by knowing that underneath this sandy soil is a thing called the red crag, which is absolutely full of little fossils of exactly this kind of colour and size, and they can really lead you astray, as this one clearly has. Well, we'll put that back. But of course you did the whole cremated bone report for the cemetery underneath the visitor centre, didn't you? What was the preservation of the bone like there?
Well, the bone was actually in quite good condition, and I'm a bit surprised really, because this is quite acid soils, and even cremated bone, which survives better than unburnt bone does in these kinds of soil, you expect to get a little bit eroded, and it wasn't. It was really quite clear looking.
So what do you think that we should be looking out for in our trench? Do you think we'll recognise the real cremated bone when we see it?
It will be white. It will be quite obvious. You'll get quite big pieces should survive. You may also get pyre debris, so charcoal, the black material, which they quite often would put in the backfill of the graves. So those are the two things to look out for. You will not be able to mistake it. It won't look like that. It will look quite nicely recognisable.
There's only been the faintest hint of cremated bones so far, but we have found 3 fragments of copper alloy sheeting, which could be pieces of the Broomswell bucket.
What do we think?
Well, I would say, I'm just looking at them quickly, that basically the fabric of these are too thick. Can I pick it up?
Yes, of course.
This one, you can see it's actually quite a thick piece of copper alloy, whatever it is. But this one, I'm actually very intrigued by it, because I think there you have a piece of sheet metal which is really, really fine. Do you see how fine it is? And I think that when it's clean, of course if it had a stamp mark on it, it would be absolutely brilliant. That could very well be a candidate, but who knows?
This is a piece of the actual bucket that's detached and never been on display. But you can see, if I just lift it up slightly there, How incredibly thin
it's so fine. I didn't realise how thin it was. You kind of forget these things, you know. And it is so fine. The metalwork is so fine.
Yes, but the nice thing about this is that it's got this slightly shiny, conserved surface, and you can see the pattern, the stamp marks really well, can't you? All these little annulets.
Yep, part of the hunting scene.
Yes, yes, absolutely. And it's so clear that I can't help thinking that if it did occur on certainly on these two, we'd be able to see it.
You'd be able to see it straight away.
Even if these aren't part of the bucket, they might be grave or pyre goods from another Anglo Saxon grave, which would indicate that the cemetery extends into the field. The excavation under the Visitors Centre revealed over 30 inhumation and cremation burials. Many of the inhumations had weaponry, suggesting that they might be from the wealthy warrior class. So were these people the forebears of the warriors buried at the Royal Burial Ground? And if so, what drew them here in the first place? Stuart joined the team to look for clues in the landscape.
The visitor centre is close to me in that direction, and the excavations with Time Team in Garden Field are just behind me over here. Particularly in the area of the visitor centre was where the earliest prehistoric burial found here. There was a small barrow excavated over there, and also the earliest Anglo-Saxon burials, cremations, that were found were in the same area. So there's clearly early activity at the head of this particular valley. This may point to this area being the focus of early settlement in that mid-6th century period. Nothing very elaborate, possibly small structures, small number of houses perhaps, but importantly it's at that transition between the accessibility of the river and the accessibility of the higher ground behind, which is significantly important here because it provides agricultural ground, which means you can feed yourself, you can rear animals, you can sustain a settlement here over a long period of time.
The team's taken off another 10 centimetres in Garden Field, but we've downed tools because of a strong metal detecting signal in the ground.
You can't tell the depth from that then, Keith?
No, it's very difficult to. So that's this on non. That was a ferrous mow that you've just heard. This is a non-ferrous mow.
What's the next stages and how deep is that going to go?
I can't be. You know, it's a 5-ton digger, so you can't be absolutely precise. But 10 centimetres should mean, if it's below 10 centimetres, it should be safe. We can go a little deeper than 10 centimetres to be sure. But I don't want to dig because
into the next
into features and deposits we shouldn't be digging into at this stage.
Sure. Keith checks that whatever's making the signal is safely below the level of the toothed bucket. And in the dome, Helen's taking a closer look at the copper alloy fragments that have been found nearby.
This bit would either hold the hinge of the pin or be bent over to hold the end of the pin, the bit that hooks into it. And that would make this possibly a disc brooch.
Several of the burials under the Visitors Centre contain brooches like these.
What I'm hoping is that we might be able to also see a little bit of iron, because an early Anglo-Saxon brooch almost always has a pin made of iron. The earth is slowly coming off, being brushed, and you can see that it's got some form to it. There's some flat areas here, and there's some lumpy areas here. Now, what it's beginning to look like to me is possibly a bit of metalwork that's been cremated. It's looking less and less like something I understand with each bit of brushing.
Eagle eyes are required to spot such tiny finds.
I think that's a bit of pop.
And Justin's GPS plots are beginning to show patterns which could prove critical when we hit archaeology.
Sometimes I think we must look a bit like herons, sort of looking for fish.
Metal detectorists Emma and Tom have now joined Keith, so they can begin the daunting task of detecting the entire field, using a grid that they'll move around the area. To complete the task could take the rest of the month.
So I'm still staring wistfully down into the trench, but the reason why I'm staring extra hard at this bit here is this is where we had the really strong detector signal before. Ooh. Yeah, that's a nice bit, isn't it? That's, I think it's a little blade of some sort that's taken off there. That's the inside. And there you can see where it's quite a nice edge. They've had 2 flakes off there, whacked off the core like that, bink. And it looks like, yeah, if you look at can you see the little edges along there? They might have just touched that up a little bit to kind of sharpen it. But yeah, that's a definite flint artifact there, 100%.
Madeline Humler is the leading authority on prehistoric Sutton Hoo. She's got a long history with the site, and she and Martin even brought up their children here in the 1980s. And the finds from this year's excavation are adding to the picture she's built up over some 40 years of research.
Around 3600 BC, we get Neolithic occupation, mostly in the Royal Burial Ground site. There was a little bit underneath this visitor centre, very little. And what it consists of is mostly just pits in the ground, but with a lot of pottery in it. Mm-hmm. What it is telling us is that the landscape in the 4th millennium was already being farmed, so it's no longer a sort of primeval forest.
Yeah, so they've cut the trees down.
It's a farm landscape to which Neolithic people certainly repeatedly came back. So right at the end of the Neolithic, very beginning of the Bronze Age, the so-called time of the beaker, we found, again, in the Royal Burial Ground, mostly under Mound 2, which is that ship burial, but also just next to Mound 1, the remains of an actual settlement. By that time, people had actually settled on this landscape.
And so was that those huge ditches that I remember just south of Mound 2?
Yeah.
Yes.
I'm sure you've done one of those.
The enormous things, yes.
But we also did have roundhouses. Now we're going to jump to about 500 BC to the Iron Age. And during the Iron Age, what seems to happen is that there's a very long boundary in the form of a ditch that goes all the way along the Royal Burial Ground. Here, almost exactly in line with the paths that the visitors are taking. It skirts along here and goes right up north to Gallows Hill, pretty much. Yeah. Onto this boundary, they then added smaller enclosures like little field systems, so-called coaxial field system, as well as a quite big enclosure, which this trench and this dome actually are sitting in.
Yes.
The fields and more trackways are visible on the geophys. And through the wonders of technology, John and Stuart are able to follow these on the ground using the GPS tracking on their phones. And it seems that the rabbits have marked the route with their burrows.
So we're just coming onto this curving ditch. And as you're right, Stuart, it looks as though the rabbits have put burrows along the line of this ditch. But if we walk in this direction, we'll get to these parallel ditches, the trackway. Another rabbit hole. Clever things.
They're everywhere, watch out then.
Stuart believes the double ditch is part of the Bronze Age landscape that Madeline was talking about. And John thinks he can see a Bronze Age barrow in the geophys.
That's the pipeline. We're roughly in the centre.
Right.
Here. So it's just off this slope.
Yeah, I mean, this position is actually classic for a Bronze Age barrow with a ring ditch. It's called a false crest position. It's not actually on the top.
Yeah.
They're usually placed to be designed to be seen from down below. You're looking up and then
You've got the profile
that
Yeah.
way. More evidence is building up that this field system is really extensive. It's evolving over a long period of time and it's extending down there as well. So there'll be Bronze Age activity all over these fields and slopes around here.
A Bronze Age mound and several ring ditches were discovered under the visitors' centre. So it's possible that there were a number of mounds across the field which might later have been used as rabbit warrens. By the beginning of day 4, we're beginning to get through the layers of plough soil, and there's light at the end of the tunnel.
So if you look down there, you can see the orange stripes coming across that way, and they do look a bit like old plough marks, I think, that have been filled in. But yeah, there's still something. They're archaeological features, though. So yeah, it's everything we kind of hoped for, and we're starting to get a change.
Apart from a concentration of Roman pottery and the odd find, there's not much sign of activity at Sutton Hoo between the Iron Age field systems and the Anglo Saxon burials. But this period between the 1st and 5th centuries could be crucial to our story.
Wow, that's amazing.
Got a fibula brooch.
Yes, it's just, I'm speechless because it's so enormous and it's in relatively good condition, isn't it? In fact, actually, you can see there that all the bits that are coming out are made, they're all springing, aren't they, from the centre of behind the bow. So it was all forged together in one bit and then bent round to make the spring, and then the pin would have come down here. But they're always called Colchester 1 pieces, but they're actually made in 2 pieces because it's got this bronze bar that's going through there to support the spring. And how deep?
Probably no deeper than 4 inches.
Gosh, have you ever seen one in this good condition and this big?
No, they're normally a lot smaller and significantly in pieces.
Yes, and they're normally dated to around the time that the Romans arrive, about kind of the middle decades of the 1st century, which is a time when we haven't got a lot of evidence at Sutton Hoo. I mean, we've got the Roman pottery that's right far over there. It was found in the field walking. But this kind of changes things, doesn't it?
It's very exciting.
Yes.
As we reach the bottom of the plough soil, the team's extremely cautious because we don't want to damage any important finds.
We're just sort of picking that up now. Yeah, it's a very strong signal like that.
Right. We've got to be careful that we don't go into the layer below, because we know that we're not far off. I mean, I know Justin's auger picked up maybe 10 centimetres of this soil left, but we've got to be very aware that we don't want to dig into the layer below. If it does turn into that yellow-orange sand quite clearly,
yes,
we'll just have to kind of leave it at that, I suppose, won't we?
Day 5, and we're hoping to get into some real archaeology before the end of the day.
Andrew, it's not a race.
And we're starting to see the first signs of cremations in the trench.
It's not actually very inspiring here, is it? They've been going for the best part of a week now. On the old terrestrial time teams, that would have been enough time to excavate a Roman villa or a medieval manor or something, but I can't see anything at all. Matt!
Tony?
One word would be painstaking, another word would be achingly slow. What's going on?
Well, the process we're going through here, Tony, is quite slow, and sometimes it is frustratingly slow. But it is paying off, because here we have what looks like we've got a bit of pot, we've got a bit of bone, we might have a cremation, and we know from what we've done already that this was an area where we've already found bits of pottery, so this is a hotspot for us.
Jackie, I love it when archaeologists say to me, there's pot here, there's bones here, there's evidence of excavation. All I can see is like just a bit of dirt. Really.
Well, I mean, it's not been cleaned up. Can you see that dark edge coming round here? And looking in here, it looks also like there's some fuel ash in there, possibly from the pyre, debris from the pyre. And there looks to be possibly bits of cremated bone there. And like Matt said, there's the pottery across there.
It's disturbed, but you can see quite clearly a nice piece of pot there. And that was exactly like the piece we found higher up.
Could that be Anglo Saxon?
Yeah, I think so. I think we could have found one of our cremation burials.
This is what I don't understand. There was supposed to be a pipe along here, right? And we've got all this, what to my untutored eye looks like archaeological debris around it. Are we going to find a cemetery right there, or is it going to be smashed up, or is there a cemetery over the way? What are you thinking?
Well, we think from the geophysics there could be cremations around here. What we don't know at the moment is whether the charcoal in the bone we've got there is in the backfill of that pipe and it's all been churned up, or whether the pipe has just missed it and we're at the edge, and we can't see that because it hasn't been cleaned up. So what we really need to do next is finish this pass with the machine. You can see we've done that bit there. We're going to finish off the whole site, and then we're going to get down, start troweling and clean up round here, and then we'll know whether we have a cremation right in front of us there, or whether it's just a mixed up pile of excremation.
Watch this space.
While we're searching for evidence of where the early Anglo-Saxons were buried, we're also keen to find out where they were living.
I lost a bit of pattern, haven't I? Yeah. Okay, that'll do.
Bede, the famous monk who wrote a history of the English people in the 8th century, suggested that there was a royal settlement at Rendlesham, and excavations there have revealed a palace that might well be fitting for a warrior king such as Radwald. But Stuart thinks there ought to have been a settlement nearer Sutton Hoo.
Rather interesting where the ship burial is that everybody goes to. It's right on the end, on the inland end, of a very distinct finger-like promontory. Yeah. So it looks as if the whole essence of the burial practice that's going on here for this big royal grouping is related to the wider landscape. They're being buried on the edge of their territory, which is much, much wider and extending way out to Rendlesham, which is inland. It's quite probable to me, looking at the way these valleys come up from the river up onto the high ground, that the initial settlement should fall some way between the coastal zone down here by the river at the end of this valley here and on top, which is actually pretty much where we're sitting in this area up here.
But for the next few days, we're going to have to concentrate our geophysics on smaller, more specific questions, maybe relating to boat building, maybe looking at this one promontory that's not been looked at up until now.
That was actually levelled to effectively build the house that was there. So there's going to be a lot of build-up around where the house is now, but there's an area beyond it which doesn't look to have been impacted on in any way.
That is known as Rabbit Field, apparently.
Oh, so you're off chasing rabbits, are you?
So Simon begins the survey of the promontory which Tranmere House is built on. This is the house where Edith Pretty lived in the 1930s and watched Basil Brown's excavations from the balcony.
And it is probably
80 years later, here we are following in his footsteps and getting nearer the source of the big signal.
Yeah. It's big, so but it's still probably a couple of inches to go on it. Nothing from there. From that line, yeah. There's absolutely nothing.
Okay, well, that's marked out.
Yeah.
Yeah, so we can go from where this flag is, put back.
One more pass with the digger, and there are more indications of Anglo-Saxon grave goods.
All bits of bronze.
And Jackie's spotted the tiniest fragments of bone on top of the big signal.
Yeah. That looks like quite a small bone there, because you can see the curve of the outside.
You can see the curve of it. So I mean, it could end up being part of one of the finger bones or something, but that's a little bit thicker. You can see. Mm-hmm. It suggests there has been a cremation burial around here, and this is disturbed material, and that's just bits of cremated bone that have sort of got mixed up on this surface material here. So it's got to have come from somewhere
in the immediate vicinity, because you wouldn't even have that much surviving otherwise.
Yeah, it wouldn't take much to turn that to just to dust and powder, would it?
No, it wouldn't.
I mean, there's kind of darker areas around here. Do you think that could be material from a cremation as well?
Yeah, that could be very fine particle fuel ash. So I use the expression fuel ash deliberately rather than charcoal, because charcoal suggests you're going to get pieces of charred wood, whereas quite often you get this, when it gets to a point where it's so well oxidised, it's very, very fat. It's almost like dust. So that's why it looks so light and ephemeral, and it won't capture it, but it's important we can see it's there.
So by the end of week 1, there are clear signs that the cemetery does extend into Garden Field. Next week, Lawrence and Derek take to the water.
What's behind these flood barriers and what's in the field?
The Geophys team expand their survey towards the river.
If it's medieval, it's pretty exciting.
And Hilda gets stuck into the trench as we dig downwards towards whatever is giving off that big signal.
If you'd like to see more episodes like this, you can make it happen. Join over 10,000 Patreon members worldwide and see new digs take place and amazing additional extras.
It's the beginning of the second week of our month at Sutton Hoo. We're asking why this site was chosen to be the resting place for Anglo Saxon royalty, and whether the cemetery discovered under the Visitors Centre contains the ancestors of the warrior king buried in the famous and spectacular ship burial. Last week, we began to uncover the first signs that the cemetery stretched into the field where we're digging.
I think we could have found one of our cremation burials.
And we think we might have found the missing bottom of an important 6th century Byzantine cremation vessel, the Broomswell bucket. This week, we're continuing to peel off the layers of complicated archaeology and expanding our search to look for settlements near the River Deben. It's week 2, and a team of volunteers has joined us in the trench. But the weather has taken a turn for the worse.
It's like November. See my breath.
Yeah, that's absolutely perfect. That's really gorgeous.
Of course, when I turn up, it starts raining. So I'm glad I've brought my waterproofs. But I've got straight into the trench to help everyone cleaning it back.
The weather's making it tough, but we're finding things that look like cremations.
The real excitement over here is to see by the flag, the black area. Yeah. That's got 2 pieces of pottery that just pinged out of it, and you can just see little speckles of white, which are cremated bone. So it's this very scattered, very tiny little bits that's obviously from a cremation that presumably has been hit by ploughing or the service trench or something.
So you think it's disturbed?
Yeah.
There's the edge of something on there.
Yeah, there's this, yeah, definitely.
Yeah, it's nice and clear, isn't it?
Yeah, it is very clear.
This is Garden Field, where we are now in the dome, and our trench is just next to it where the flag is. Now, you've done all...
And the GPR team have arrived to expand the search for Anglo Saxon dwellings.
We've got the Hoos of these promontories that stick out into the valley. There's one here which has an Anglo Saxon cemetery on. There's one over here which has another Anglo Saxon cemetery on it. But we've got an even more prominent one just here, which apparently has nothing on it, which seems a bit weird. Was there something else there? And we were wondering about a hall. You know, so there are examples in Scandinavia at Uppsala where you've got the burials and the halls together.
We've got Swedish radar equipment. We have Andreas here, who's come all the way from Sweden just to take part in this, so he knows plenty about the Scandinavian halls and
yeah, well, he's got to find one.
Yeah,
he's not going home unless he finds a hall here.
So Simon continues to look for an Anglo-Saxon building outside Tranmere House. Although it's likely the posh hall would have been on top of the hill, the ordinary folk probably lived lower down the slopes. And one possibility is Riverview Field, where the Sutton Hoo Geophys volunteers have been working. Unfortunately, the wooden sunken houses the Anglo Saxons lived in don't leave much of a footprint. But what's shown up is a mysterious rectangular feature which definitely needs investigation.
Did you say we had quite a few volunteers to help us out down here by any chance? There's a couple of parallel lines coming across there. Yeah.
It's looking promising, but with the need to cover ground quickly and accessibility difficult with the cart, it's down to Jimmy to provide the horsepower.
We say Sutton Hoo. Hoo just means hill, doesn't it?
Hoo means promontory.
Yeah.
So there are promontories in a row all the way along this side of the gravel terrace. So the gravel terrace has been thrown up at the end of the Ice Age. Then the water drains off and creates these valleys, these little re-entrants. They leave us with these promontories, which are really nice places to build something. If I was a Saxon, I'd be building down opposite where we are here. That's another promontory. It's got a good view of the river, and this would be the landmark that they'd aimed for when they came up the river.
Unfortunately, it's likely that any remains of a Saxon hall might have been destroyed when Tranmere House was built.
Walking this way towards Tranmere House is really nice because we're essentially walking in the footsteps of Basil Brown, as you would have walked up from the original excavations, bringing finds to show to Edith Pretty, who lived in this magnificent house.
The house is now partly a museum.
Is that Basil's own?
Basil's tape measure, I love it. Archaeologists only.
Oh, excellent. Privileged.
Upstairs is where our finds are being processed.
And in the tradition of Basil Brown, we're storing our finds in Tranmere House as well.
Yes. Oh, there's so many.
The finds so far take us back thousands of years to Neolithic flints, Roman brooches, and fragments of Anglo-Saxon vessels. And there are more finds and more features emerging as the team continue the painstaking troweling.
And you've been interested in archaeology kind of all your life, or
yeah, ever since I was
kind
young.
of inspired you?
Ever since I was a young lad, I found 17th century clay pipe in the garden.
Yeah. That was my very first find as well, actually. As a kid,
Yeah.
a bit of clay pipe in the garden, and that's what sparked all of this, really.
As the team make their careful progress, Dig Director Justin is trying to make sense of the orange features crisscrossing the trench.
You're seeing that orange linear coming through, which is what we think is a water pipe.
Oh, right. So the ploughs are over the yellow.
Because,
okay.
we probably went to mid-20th century, so had maybe 30 years of ploughing. So everything we're seeing is normal modern ploughing.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yes.
But you can see strips of redeposited subsoil. You know, it's churning, it's pulling stuff up.
Yeah.
The area there where we think we've got a disturbed cremation is a bit strange. So it's
that
almost
black,
like,
black area.
Dipped in with an excavator and put it back in again. It's quite odd.
On top of the difficulties of working in the sand and the changeable weather, the metal detectorists are also trying not to disturb a family of oyster catchers nesting in the middle of the field.
We've got our first piece of Saxon.
Yes, little strap end. You can just see the where the strap went in there between the two bits of metal held up by the rivet. Oh, and look, the ring and dot is going all the way down, isn't it? Either side of there. And so presumably it would have been about that long originally. It's a strap end, so it holds the weight of your belt down, and after it's come through the buckle, it lets it dangle nicely. And it dates to the 10th century, something like that, so about 300 or 400 years after our main period of early Anglo-Saxon use of the Tranmere House cemetery and the mound cemetery, actually. So it's a long time afterwards. I mean, the Vikings are on the horizon and things, aren't they? Or really more than on the horizon.
This is a long time after we think our Anglo-Saxon warrior was buried in the Broomswell bucket in Garden Field. Lunchtime on day 6, and Andy demonstrates the importance of working in this meticulous way.
I'm filming. What have you found?
We've narrowly avoided hitting what looks like a cremation urn, so Justin places a protective sandbag over it for Hilda to work on later. Near the middle of the field, we've got another Anglo Saxon find.
These are brilliant, aren't they? Do you know the kind? It's got a circle in the middle and then a lozenge around the outside. And the lozenge has 2 strands, and they get extended out and turn into little knots. And they always do go this way around. They always go clockwise round. And you can see it's a brooch because we've got a hinge at one end, hinge at that end, and you can just see it's got some iron in it, and that's going to be a catch. There's a tiny bit of iron there. Wow, that is lovely. So there's quite a lot of these in East Anglia. They're known as the East Anglian series, which rather gives it away, and we tend to usually use them as an example of the first thing that's mass produced after the Romans, because we've got so many of them. They all seem to date to the 10th century, which is the date of this art style, Bora style, so it's got some Scandinavian influence, but they're absolutely always Anglo-Saxon. You don't find these outside England.
You look absolutely drenched.
Not really.
A rain shower has brought out the colours of the cremation, which Andy saved us from clobbering with the digger bucket.
You could quite easily see how it could have been missed, because
Yes.
it's just the tiniest little bit.
Yeah, and it looks to have been cut through by this kind of service trench or whatever it is.
Yeah, whatever it is, this thing that's on the geophysics that's brought us here, really. And it just shows how soft it must have been to be sliced through like, I mean, hardly like a pot at all, more like something that's made out of, I don't know, blue tack. To me, this looks like what you'd expect for Anglo-Saxon pottery. It's low-fired, it's variable in colour.
Yeah, because crucially, we've got these little white bits of what looks like bone.
Well, that clinches it. That is definitely burnt bone. That looks as much like burnt bone as any burnt bone I've ever seen, having been taken in by a fossil on last week. So that surely must be an early Anglo-Saxon cremation urn with an in situ tiny bit of cremation in it. So we know that the cemetery underneath the visitor centre comes at least this far, which makes it a lot bigger than we thought it was.
Where we are digging now is only, 20 yards or so away from it. Is it the same cemetery?
Yes, I'm quite sure of that. And it's a cemetery which has got 3 kinds of burial in. The first kind is Bronze Age burials and Bronze Age cremations in pots. So we know that they are there already, because when the Saxons came along, they could see the barrows, and at least one of them they decided to reuse, so they put their own pot in it. And then the next lot are inhumations, and they are the classic sort of difference between men and women. Some have swords and spears, and some have jewellery. And then there is the Saxon cremations, and Sutton Hoo is quite unusual in that it's using the rite of cremation quite late.
So far, we've encountered 2 cremations in the trench, and we're hoping to find some datable material to see how they fit into the timeline of the cemetery under the visitors' centre.
Okay, so I'm just cleaning up this feature. That's a possible cremation urn. We've got a scatter of pottery here, and then we've got the rim of a pot, or at least the kind of curving edge of a pot running around this side. So I'm just trying to define it a bit better. There's also bits of burnt bone, by the looks of it, kind of scattered around the place. So I'm just carefully trying to find the extent of it. It seems to have been disturbed by something coming through here, and I think the top of the pot has possibly been knocked this way, which is why you've got all these chunks here.
We've recovered a number of copper alloy fragments which could be from cremation vessels.
There's another bit of suspected bronze cremation bowl in there.
And Derek's using X-ray fluorescence to compare the chemical makeup of the original bucket to some fragments found a few years ago.
So this is from the original bucket, but it's a piece that wasn't found until 2012. It must have come off the original bucket at the time of finding, but it must be part of it because it's got the same decoration.
I think even the thickness and corrosion looks slightly different.
Yeah.
What I can tell you is they are completely different alloys. That much I can say with confidence. So the one R fragment is around 30% copper, lots of tin, lots of lead, not much zinc, whereas the known fragment is a much cleaner alloy. It does have a lot of zinc, but not for kind of 20%, but that could be an instrumental difference.
By comparing this piece to the ones we've found in the trench, Derek reckons they come from a number of different vessels. Only one is actually part of the Broomswell bucket.
So this one I can say is bucket.
Presumably these fragments came off the bucket when it was pulled out of the ground by the plough. But Helen thinks there are signs that the bucket had been broken and repaired before it was buried.
So Helen, what's this bit you want me to look at?
The grey bit on the edge in the corner.
And what do we think
it looks like a kind of, well, it looks like solder, but I can't see why you would have solder on the bucket unless it had a break on it.
Okay, so I've got some results.
Okay.
So the body itself, the main body, is 89% copper, 10% zinc with traces of lead and some other trace elements
Okay,
in
that's
there.
what we're expecting.
Yeah. The lumpy bit is 15% lead, 19% tin, 58% copper, and 5.2% zinc.
Wow.
So that is very different.
That's extraordinarily different. Could that be solder?
That's a solder, yeah.
So we can say from that the bucket was broken and repaired before it went into the ground.
It's most likely a repair, I'd say, yeah.
And so maybe that's why the base isn't there anymore. Maybe the way it was pulled out of the ground meant that soldered repair failed again.
Yeah.
And so that base could be there
for
us to find. I mean, I've been assuming if it was all just broken up into little bits. So that's a big thing that we now know about the bucket, a big piece of its biography that we didn't know 2 minutes ago. And we've got it from a tiny little piece from your machine.
A tiny fragment.
Yeah, and we're not even in a lab. That's amazing. What a result.
If the base broke off, it might not have been dragged too far from where it was buried, and we're hoping that could be where Justin has been digging.
Well, this is the probable burial defined by the metal detector signal.
So that was the large signal?
Yeah, very large signal. So it's essentially an area like that, which has several very strong metal detector signals in it. And we've taken a grab sample of anything with cremated bone, and we're 3D'ing finds. And we still can't see anything. So we'll clean this area up after we've taken the spit off, photograph it, and do the same again.
If it's intact, the bottom of the bucket might still contain important information, such as cremated human and animal bones, as well as pyre or grave goods. A bronze hanging bowl discovered in the previous excavations included the cremated remains of a woman buried in what's known as a bustum burial, meaning that she was buried on the site of her pyre after what appears to be quite an elaborate funeral.
So we've got two graves there. One is in the bronze Bromswell bucket, and the other is in a hanging bowl. So Bromswell bucket comes from Constantinople, and the hanging bowl comes from northwest Britain. So there's something going on here. It's saying sort of maybe this person went to Constantinople, maybe the other person was on a campaign up north, And when they die, they're cremated, and then the cremated remains are put in this souvenir as a memory of how brave they were or a particularly fine excursion they had.
So presumably the implication would be that these are people who had some wealth or some status.
Well, I think so. I mean, just to unleash the imagination a little bit more, because we can't prove this quite yet, but the weapons do seem to suggest that people of Radwell's entourage, other warriors in other words, in order to win fame, did go and fight in the Byzantine army and came back with souvenirs. They came back with souvenirs like the Bronzewell bucket. And they also came back with presents for their wives, who then started decking themselves out in Constantinople-type jewellery. So modelling themselves on Theodora, long earrings and necklaces, all that kind of thing. So you can imagine filling out this picture. The people in East Anglia were no yokels or locals. They were very much in contact with their modern world.
We were hoping to find signs of Anglo Saxon settlement, but unfortunately there's too much disturbance on the Hoo around Tranmere House for the geophys team to be able to see anything of note. But they've had more luck with the anomaly in Riverview, which has yielded some surprising results.
How big would that be?
You're looking at, between my fingers, about 20-25 metres between my fingers.
Classic size.
Everything about that screams boat, doesn't it?
Yeah. I think that's 625 AD, roughly.
Be serious for a moment. We're either looking at planks of a boat or we're looking at a series of land drains. But why are they only showing in one small area that's boat-shaped?
If you're enjoying this episode, you can help us tell more fascinating stories like this one. It's your support that makes our coverage possible. Join a worldwide community of Time Team fans on Patreon.
We're in the middle of our second week of our month at Sutton Hoo. So far, we've found that the cemetery under the Visitors Centre is much bigger than we'd thought and has been disturbed by the service trench running through the middle.
So I'm just finishing off cleaning around the probable cremation urn. Just checking that none of this feature extends beyond the other edge of the service trench. I don't think it does. There's a few flecks of pottery, but that might just be because of the disturbance of the service trench going in.
The geophys team are trying to work out what caused these extraordinary GPR responses in Riverview Field.
But if you think about, what other processes happen in that kind of area?
Well, that's what we're looking for. Boat building, anything like that, fishing.
Yeah.
It doesn't have to be Anglo-Saxon.
No.
I mean, if it's medieval, it's pretty exciting. If it's 18th century, it's quite exciting.
At low tide, it's possible to see wrecks of boats emerge from the River Deben, which separates Sutton Hoo from the shipbuilding town of Woodbridge. So it's not too much of a stretch to imagine there could be something relating to boat building in Riverview Field. But Angus is worried it's too far from the river.
It would be quite challenging to launch a ship from that location. You'd need to dig a big channel and get it out on a very high tide. That seems quite far back from the...
But are we not seeing old channels here?
Yes, maybe. I'm not... I'm just trying to restrain myself, really.
Yeah.
We're going to put some test pits into Riverview.
It's a beautiful setting. The test pitters are going to have a great time. I'm not going to go this game.
You're doing great, mate. Keep going.
So Derek and Lawrence head down to take a peek.
That's locked, mate.
First of all, what an incredible setting to have your test pits in the next couple of weeks. I'm pretty envious of the volunteers for that.
I can't tell you how much I want to get out in a boat.
The field is protected from the tidal River Deben by substantial flood barriers.
After you, Lawrence. This is another big fun defensive flood bank that we're going up now. Oh, I think we spotted this one on the LiDAR. Now this is more like it. So we've got to ignore this big bank that's running off to our left and right here. This flood bank is stopping that interaction between the field and that area. Could it also be causing that to build up slightly higher than it ought to be?
Yes, yeah, absolutely, absolutely. But these lovely marshy bits, these interaction zones, they're great for wildlife, great for ducks, but there would have been a need for the Saxons to manage this in some form, to set up jetties, to set up launch areas and landing areas for boats, for food, for navigation. Oh, I love it.
Back in Garden Field, Justin and Hilda are collecting the disturbed remains of the first cremation we found for analysis.
Okay, and there's a bag for Jackie, which will give a fine number.
Definitely. That's really.
And Catherine Hills, a leading expert in Anglo Saxon material culture, is having a look at the pieces of pottery found inside it.
So I think that little grid could possibly be a circular grid. But you get stamps later. You get stamps on pots all the way through, occasionally, quite rarely, into the Middle Saxon period. But the thing that makes me think it might be more likely 6th century or even later is that it's got organic temper in it.
Oh, so
it's got quite a lot. You can see where the plant material has been burnt out when it was fired.
Well, that fits in perfectly with the rest of the cemetery. It is supposed to only get going in the mid-6th, so...
Well, I don't think so far this one small piece of pottery needs to contradict that chronology. But I suppose the size of the original pot, which is quite significant, does make it more likely it was from a cremation than from an inhumation.
We had been hoping to excavate some of the service trench to give us a preview into the archaeology of the field without us needing to disturb anything new, but it's narrower than we hoped.
So this is in real time?
Yeah,
So the Geophys team are trying some different equipment to see if they can see how deep it is and if any other features are visible under the plough soils.
The service trench is showing up really clearly now, isn't it? This orange, bright orange streak here, but it's immensely narrow. Is that a problem?
It is a little bit of a problem. We can see it clearly in some places, in others it's still covered in plough furrows. But we were expecting something reasonably wide to give us a sort of preview of archaeological features that it cut. However, because it's that wide, it gives us, well, a very narrow slot to excavate.
So it'll be difficult to excavate and it'll be really difficult to see, won't it? Because how deep do you think it's going to go down?
Well, I think that we put the radar over it and the guys suggested it was another 30 centimetres down, and the detectorists aren't detecting the pipe yet.
Oof.
So it's probably at least that far down, given they're only getting occasional signals possibly off the joints in the pipe.
So you can't get a spade in it?
Yeah, but it's still going to work, isn't it? It's still going to give you sections through features.
It's nice, it's deep, because it means where it's truncated archaeology, it gives us a nice deep window, but the practicalities of digging the trench and recording those sections is a little tricky now. We know it's only that wide.
A piece of flint that I think is a piece of struck flint.
We're finding flints at every stage of the dig.
So we definitely do have artefacts in the form of scrapers,
and
but most of it is actually waste flakes. So these are not artefacts themselves, they're just the debris of what's left after you've struck a piece of flint, a core, to make an artefact.
So does that indicate people were making flint tools on site?
Yes, but currently we're not finding great concentrations of them. So we cannot say this was a working area where they were napping flint, sitting in a circle doing it.
Yeah, so relatively.
So it's quite scattered.
This scatter of prehistoric finds in our trench is a few metres from the Bronze Age barrow under the visitors' centre. And John thinks there might be another in Garden Field. And now he's seen something suspicious in the trench.
Let's ignore the pipe. And actually, what did I see here? Oh. What?
We have a semicircular feature there, John.
That's a lot more interesting than a pipe. I'll give you that much.
Is that real? That's...
Let me go back to the 2D again. Let's just have a quick... So, it's that response down that side, that edge there. And that looks real to me.
So could this be signs of another barrow? And there seems to be yet another ring ditch halfway up the trench.
Yeah, that looks like some sort of possible pit, doesn't it? Oh, you mean there, the kind of bright white flecks?
Got the white flecks, yeah. There's been a...
I mean, I might be inventing this.
No, I don't think you are. It looks quite featurey, doesn't it?
Carenza has been intending to put some test pits in this field to see if our volunteers could find signs of Anglo Saxon settlement known as sunken featured buildings, which are notoriously difficult to spot. But now she's got another mystery to solve.
My thought is, could it be a dry dock where they were building a boat? And you'd love it that was an in-situ boat that wasn't finished. I think it's perhaps more likely, if it was a dry dock, then when the boat's been finished, they flooded the area, sailed the boat out into one of these old stream channels, and what's left are actually the foundations of that dry dock. So maybe gravel base, stone base on which the boat was actually built, rather than the boat itself.
From what I can see we've got in the way of manpower, we can probably do at least 10 test pits and probably a maximum of 20. And obviously with test pits, they're only a metre square, so several targets is better than just a few.
But there's a second target at the north of the field where the team have found another intriguing feature.
And you can just see hints of wall lines at the west end of this shadow.
So if you're thinking about a rectangular building with a tower at the west end that's been mostly robbed out and wasn't residential, are you thinking church?
And that's for you to find out.
So Carenza's looking for a church, a dock, a ship, Anglo-Saxon buildings, and evidence of what was happening here in prehistory. It's a good job she's got a lot of volunteers signed up.
If you'd like to see more episodes like this, you can make it happen. Join over 10,000 Patreon members worldwide and see new digs take place and amazing additional extras.
Welcome to Sutton Hoo, and it's the start of week 3 here on our excavations at this iconic site. And things are starting to get busier because not only are we going to be excavating the trench, we're going to start opening up some test pits way across there down by the river. And we're going to be joined by volunteers from the National Trust and also our Patreon members as well.
In the main trench in Garden Field, we're continuing to work spit by spit towards subtle features and the source of that big metal detecting signal. Our test pitters are going to spend the next 3 days down in Riverview Field.
There are very intriguing geophysical anomalies in the field which we simply don't understand. They're either terribly exciting or terribly boring. But I think the test pits will sort us out which way.
The volunteers have come from all over the world, some further than others.
My name's Chris Fowkes and I've come all the way down from Derbyshire just to be here today.
Knoxville, Tennessee, United States of America.
I'm from Boston.
From Boston?
Yes.
So it's a long journey to make to come here.
Yes.
Yeah.
All the way from Woodbridge.
Oh, that far.
Yeah.
You know, like I think we're the long and the short of it.
I've got the jag loop.
lines. Yeah, I was climbing up Snowdon and opened up the emails at the top, so I'm going to send some pictures, and I got an email saying I've been selected as a volunteer, so I was really happy.
Have that one.
Oh no.
We're putting in a line of test pits to give us an overview of what's going on in this field. They're taking in two interesting anomalies. In the north, a possible building with walls, and to the south, the much discussed boat or dock-like feature.
There is a very strange mark there, which looks not just boat-like, but sort of clinker-like and thwart-like. You know, it's got cross pieces as well. So whether this is a mirage or not, I don't know. What date it is, I don't know. But it's rather fascinating that it's turned up at that place. So even if it's not dated to the Sutton Hoo era, you know, somebody could easily have been building a boat down there. You go straight out into the open water from that lovely grassy slope.
We're going to have straight.
Yeah, we will.
We will.
Eventually, yes. I agree.
I'm in the middle of a dig in the US, so this is my week off.
This is our first 10 centimetres, so we're sieving the topsoil and we're finding lots of bits of rock, but we're just a bit worried about we don't want to miss anything, so I'm putting every little bit of flint aside.
Not only are our volunteers digging in the trench and the test pits, they're also processing the finds with Jenny Glazebrook, who was also part of the Sutton Hoo dig team in the 80s.
Weeny, tiny, it might be a microlith. That would be easily lost, wouldn't it?
Yes.
They're working in Tranmere House, where the first gold items found in the ship burial were brought by Basil Brown under the guard of the gamekeeper armed with his shotgun. 263 objects of gold, garnet, silver and bronze were found in a heady 17 days. Our security is a little more relaxed, and we might not be finding gold, but we are getting some valuable nuggets to help us contribute another chapter to the story of Sutton Hoo.
That thing looks like a percussive bit. Looks like it's flaked off because it's nice and clean. Whether it is or it's just been hit by a plough, I don't know, but put it aside for somebody who knows what they're talking about to check.
Some of the finds are tantalising.
Broken off something, hasn't it?
It's too thin to be a mosaic fragment, if that's what you're thinking about.
Up at the north end in Test Pit 3, we've got a bit of everything.
That's brick or tile. That's our prize find so far that I've seen. A nice flake.
Flint flake. So we've got 10 test pits started and under excavation. It's lunchtime on day one of the test pit digging. So they're mostly only down to about 10 or 15 centimetres so far, but there's some really interesting stuff coming up. We're getting a lot of bits of worked flint actually. You know, some very crude sort of roughing up stuff, but proper flakes here. And a few bits of pottery. There's a bit there I'd like to see washed, just see if that might be a bit early. It might just be stone. That's definitely pottery there. You can see it's sort of darker through the centre. I think that's probably medieval. And then there's this bit here, which I think is probably about 16th, 17th century. And there's also quite a few bits of burnt flint. So we might have a bit of prehistoric burning. Is that from a cremation? Is it from cooking? Heating stones in a pot to heat stuff up. People suggest sometimes it's to do with saunas or to do with brewing. So we've got quite a lot of possibilities, but we could do with a bit more evidence.
The first Anglo Saxons probably arrived at Sutton Hoo from the River Deben, just as prehistoric settlers might have done before them. It connects the site to the medieval town of Woodbridge and out to the sea.
We've got these littered boats all along the coastline, and they demonstrate a history of maritime interactions. We know they were making ropes in Woodbridge for boats, so we know they were building boats and making sails. And whilst the water is a divider between Woodbridge as we know it, and the Sutton Hoo site that we're excavating, there would have been continued industry across there, and I'd be fascinated to know what's behind these flood barriers and what's in the field.
In Test Pit 11, there are signs that people have been living near the river for a very long time.
All right. So we've got a big mix of everything really at the moment. I'm just not sure if that's the rim, but it could be. So it could, but it's very worn. I mean, it could be a lot more recent. You know, it could be 18th, 19th century, 17th, 18th, 19th century. But it's so worn. I just think it might be a bit older than that. And you do get sort of largish Roman vessels. So that looks like a little flake, but at that sort of size, that is classic sort of Mesolithic flint. So that's Middle Stone Age, and this is a classic sort of site for Mesolithic settlement because it's on the edge of water. A lot of their settlements are in sort of areas where you've got marshland, so they've got reeds that you can use for thatching. You've got reed birds that you can use to hunt. You've got fishing nearby, all that sort of things.
So by the end of day one, we're already pushing the story further back than previous excavations.
Hello. Thank you. Thanks, Millie. Thanks.
We think here there is some burning here. It could possibly be a cremation because of the yellow around there, or the orange bit, but we have to dig down around the sides very carefully. But we've also found charcoal going in that direction, so we don't know what or where it is, basically.
But we're also getting hints of a post-medieval landscape.
This could be the remnants of tree roots or animal disturbance. If they are the remnants of tree roots, it's quite interesting from the natural point of view and the historic land use of the area. So although it's not an archaeological feature, it's still very, very useful when we look at the historic management of different areas. And the fact that we came across to post-medieval piece of pottery, it's all linking this level of activity to post-medieval period. So that in particular is quite a nice fragment, and it's possibly the largest piece of pottery that we found today.
And it's been quite a day for our volunteers.
So good to be here.
Yeah.
Great. So a lifetime opportunity.
It is.
Yeah.
In fact, for everyone involved, just being here at Sutton Hoo is a real career highlight.
I feel extremely privileged here, not only to have the chance to come and excavate at Sutton Hoo, which I've been so excited about, but actually to stay at Tranmere House, which is the house that Edith Pretty herself lived in and looked out at the mounds. And that's when she wanted the archaeologist Basil Brown and all the rest of it to come along and to excavate back in 1939. And then the amazing sunsets that we've had this evening, it's just absolutely fantastic.
One there. Another small one there.
It's day 13 and Paul's in the trench looking for the source of the big signal, which is getting louder and louder.
Very large tone there.
So what's your guess? Tractor parts? Or something interesting?
Engine block. Of a chariot.
Okay.
David's still finishing the metal detecting survey in Garden Field, while the test pits are underway down in Riverview. And the star find is a lovely flint blade.
It's not as sharp as it was, so you just make another one, or you probably make 10 to 15 of them in one go, and then you've got a handful, and then you can make some others.
Yeah, beautiful.
The blade came from test pit 3.
It's getting quite clay. It's clayer than some of the other test pits, and it would be really interesting. We've got prehistoric settlement here from that, and if that is a Neolithic blade and it looks like it, then that's really interesting. As I say, if it was just the sort of a random bit of flake, you do sometimes find that on Anglo Saxon sites, but they're not making blades like this. No. But it's a whole new bit of story.
Yes, it's very exciting.
Yeah. Amazingly, the volunteers have found what appears to be the tip of a very similar Neolithic blade next door in Test Pit 2, which was positioned over John's possible church building. And on either side of that building, we're hitting heavy clay, which is slowing us down.
It is taking us way more than an hour to get through a layer because it has to all be broken up by hand.
Yeah.
And Vaughn has kindly done a test corner of our next layer, and it is entirely clay.
The clay couldn't be more different to the sand in the main trench, where the cremations are becoming easier to see against what seems to be an older buried soil surface. Excavating a cemetery is something that demands extra sensitivity.
If we find parts of a grave, we've all lost loved ones, and you think, hang on a minute, this is somebody who was loved and has died and was important, and it was a tragedy when they died, and this was one of the ways in which their community came to terms with it, and we are recovering that and making it a little bit more immortal, and that's what they would have wanted. They would have wanted to be remembered.
Yeah. The cemetery seems to be much larger than we'd thought, so Justin's decided to extend the trench to see if it continues further into the field.
So we think we have time to go for the full area that we wanted to, if you remember. So we went for a minimum area we thought we could manage, depending on ground conditions. We haven't suffered problems with lots of buried soil. We have some, but it's not really a huge problem. So now we think we've got time to extend to the full area.
We're well into the afternoon of the second day of test pitting.
Angus?
And that's, yeah. Don't know
what is that.
And inside the ship-like anomaly, we're seeing hints of an industrial past.
Got to break a bit up.
I know, but there is a bit broken.
Yeah, you see.
That's coal.
That is coal.
So that's what we got. I mean, we had brick and pottery from that layer.
That was,
That's where.
yeah, that's out of okay.
It's how different it all is.
Yes.
Yours is very different in colour.
Yeah.
And it looks different. It's incredibly wet.
Yeah.
Yes.
Isn't it?
Yeah.
Yeah.
But it's a kind of clayey sand. It's not sand and it's not clay. It's like
brick earth.
Brick earth. Oh, good point. Yeah.
Well, brick earth is a clay
sand. Yeah.
So are we looking at some kind of brick or clay production? The finds from the feature are sending us in all sorts of directions.
So it's a big tooth, so it's going to be at the very least cow or horse or something like that. What's really interesting about it is the colour, because it's gone that really, really dark colour. And that shows it's been in soil for a long, long time. There was a lot of talk about an aurochs skull, which is like a giant ox, giant cattle. And apparently there was one that was discovered during excavation, some suggestion it might have been a ritual deposition or something somewhere the other side of the river. Now, we haven't been expecting to find anything like this, so we haven't, we need to go back to the books and find out what's turned up. But this looks very old.
Aurochs were the ancestors of cattle, thought to have been domesticated during the Neolithic period. It suggested that the skull found near Woodbridge was used during a ritual before being buried on a Neolithic trackway. The burnt flint we've been finding all over the site might date to a similar period.
The trouble is that we don't know what this stuff is. I mean, it's certainly in Neolithic pits, but we don't know if it's also modern and not interesting.
Nearer the river, eagle eyes have picked out a tiny flint.
Oh, yes.
And we've got this out
Needle
of
in a
it.
haystack.
And it's exactly
Burn
such an
urine in a spoil.
Look at that.
And it's taking our prehistoric story even further back to the Mesolithic period 9,000 years ago.
The bulb of percussion at that end has made a tiny, tiny little flake, and then this has been chipped away out to make it a point at that end. So you could then use it to sort of drill through something to make a hole in, really tiny, delicate hole in something, to maybe sew two bits of, processed skin or something together.
Good eye for whoever found that.
Yeah, no, absolutely. That's what I said.
The gaps that we have to fill are kind of Middle Bronze Age at the Mound Cemetery, and generally it is late. It's Mesolithic to early Neolithic. We can't see anything before the late Neolithic.
Well, that's really interesting because it definitely feels that end of the Mesolithic, Neolithic, sort of
6,000 years ago. Feels like that's most of what we've got going on here. And there's a lot of the other flint is, I think, later and very difficult to date. And it's a perfect sort of spot in the landscape for that, isn't it? Where you've got all the resources, you've got, the Mesolithic sites are famously water edge ones, aren't they? And you've got that sort of sense here that you've got this little red tongue of raised ground where you've got the river for your fishing, you've got reeds for thatching, you've got woodland for hunting, you've got, everything there.
And this is the closest place you can get to the river. It's without having to go through the mud.
This is a whole new chapter in the history of Sutton Hoo, going as far back as the later Mesolithic, around 7000 BC, when settlers might have been drawn to the natural resources. And centuries later, people began to make use of another resource, clay, which we're finding in so many of the test pits.
Gosh, it looks like my garden. You can certainly make bricks from that. Yeah. So, 1, 2, 3, 4. Ah, okay. So that's absolutely perfect, actually.
It was supposed to be clay.
Yes, that is really nice.
Right.
In Test Pit 2, inside the northern feature, it's a totally different story. Speckles of red crag and no clay. This might be because we're looking at the infill of an old clay extraction pit dug in the 18th or 19th centuries, when we now know this field was known as Clay Field. It seems this field has changed dramatically over thousands of years.
I know, that's amazing. I think that's kind of the star find of today, isn't it?
But with just one day of test pitting to go, we've got more questions than answers. We still have no idea what's causing the strange dock-shaped anomaly, and if any of the features and finds in Riverview are anything to do with the Anglo Saxon cemetery emerging in Garden Field. Day 14 dawns, and Andy might be off to a slow start in the main trench, but the volunteers are keen to pick up where they left off in the extension.
Not a sausage. We had more in the higher levels and fewer finds in the lower levels. Generally, you'd expect the opposite.
That does seem a bit old.
The cremations appear to be cut into an earlier soil, which in turn has been disturbed by the modern plough.
We were getting some nice fresh flint waste from this area, actually. Yeah, like that. Oh, I think that might get through. Might just about get through that. Little bit of a flake, yeah.
We've had a lot of flints, so it's possible that we're actually looking at a prehistoric buried ground surface. It's the last day for our test pits.
Does it catch the light?
And the prehistoric story of Riverview is getting earlier and earlier.
Mesolithic flint. Apparently it's a complete blade. It's quite translucent.
During the Mesolithic period, between 9000 and 4000 BC, the landscape of Suffolk changed dramatically as the sea swallowed the plains and the hunter-gatherers had to move inland where they began to settle.
So this is really exciting here because we've just restarted again this morning. This test pit is at one end of that feature on the geophysics that we were sort of thinking might be a ship repairing feature, big oblong rectangular feature. The radar suggested that the anomaly was at 70 centimetres down, so we're at 60, and we've just had two bits of pottery come out of this. So we've got a rim sherd here with a little bit of glaze around the top of it, which could be sort of, that looks about sort of 16th, 17th century maybe, could be late medieval. We've also got this bit with a really good shiny glaze on it there, sort of red glazed earthenware, so that's going to be sort of 16th, 17th century, perhaps even into 18th. So we've actually got some dating evidence now from a layer which is getting very close to that feature on the geophysics. So we're starting to get a bit of a date from it, and maybe it was something like a dry dock that was used for repairing ships in the 16th, 17th, 18th century.
Next door, the other test pit inside the dock anomaly is telling a similar story.
We turned a lighter color here, but we're turning darker again. And we've got some kind of feature running this way.
So that's looking very gravelly with lots of stone in it there, isn't it? That's looking very silty without anything in there. So what sort of depth are you at here?
60.
Yeah, okay, so they're at 60, your neighbours as well, the ones at the other end, not this competition, but because they're at the other end of, supposedly the other end of same feature.
Yeah.
And they've started to get this gravel coming in. This is very different to what we've got elsewhere. They've had a couple of bits of post-medieval pottery out of that gravel. So it would be great to get enough of it dug out to give a sporting chance of seeing if you get any datable finds out of this as well. But we've also got then the question, well, the fill is what, that's the time at which it was filled in.
Yes.
Which is going to be obviously later than the date at which it was dug.
Right.
But we don't know how much later.
Yeah.
It could have been dug 100 years before that, just 200 years before that, 10 days before that, you know. So.
As ever, we need something datable from the feature itself if we're going to work out what it is. Up the hill in the garden field, the team are working at the east end of the trench near the visitors' centre to establish how much of the cremation in the 6th century urn remains where it was buried.
So I'm not digging it up, I'm just defining it.
And there's another urn in the side of the trench.
With bits of metal in there as well, as you can see some greenish copper alloy in there. It's very, very exciting.
Back down in the test pits, there's some excitement because we may have the first hint of a post hole from a wooden building.
So that looks like a bit of medieval pottery. It's got a sort of clay with a sandy sort of temper, that rim shape, a little sort of ledge putting a lid on effectively. The really exciting thing about that is it's come out the edge of this feature, which if it is a cut feature, then that gives us some dating for it. Do you think you've got an edge to it?
That feels decidedly different from
But a bit
inside.
further down, does it feel like?
Does it keep going?
Does it go on being soft as you do you get that hard side of it coming in at depth?
Yeah, it feels like it so far.
So could this be from a medieval building, or maybe something even earlier? And in test pit 12, we've finally got something Anglo Saxon.
Yeah, that's that flake we found right off the bat this morning.
Mm-hmm.
And then I was just washing this.
Oh, wow. Wow.
Right? I mean, it's just, and there's a bit of grit. It's screaming, you know.
Now that is the one bit I've seen so far that looks a bit like Ipswich ware.
Really?
Yeah, which is the sort of, it's just immediately later than ship period, but pretty much the same.
Okay.
I mean, I could be wrong, but immediately looking at that, it looks like it could just be medieval. Again, we need to get a pottery specialist on all of this.
There's a very good reason to be hopeful that there might be Anglo-Saxon settlement, or something, because on the foreshore at low tide, it's just possible to make out the remains of some early wooden structures that have almost vanished.
Well, this site was identified about 20 years ago, I think, by one of the archaeology units who was doing a survey of the Suffolk coast, and they spotted this arrangement of timbers where you had horizontal timbers and vertical timbers making a kind of landing stage. There are some nice examples of prehistoric trackways made in this way in Finland. So it was obviously an interesting site, but we didn't know what date it was, so we put together a little project which included some carbon dating, which dated it to the Anglo Saxon period, but earlier than the mounds. So it's sort of it was the first early Saxon site we'd found at Sutton Hoo.
Anglo-Saxons were clearly using this foreshore at the same time as they were burying their dead in the cemetery in Garden Field, where Justin is getting closer and closer to whatever is giving off that signal.
So there we are. Very, very thin, slightly curving sheep bronze.
This fragment looks very similar to the fragments that have come from the Broomswell bucket.
So it seems to be
an edge like that. It seems to correspond with what we get off the pinpointer.
It's becoming increasingly likely that this really is the base of the bucket. And if so, we'll need to bring in conservators to help lift it. And there's another area of burning next door to the bucket.
See the sudden change in colour?
Back in Riverview, we've finished up in test pits 1 and 3 and redeployed the team to put in another at the lowest point of the site.
So that's another nice blade that we've got turning up. So we've got that sense again, that sort of Neolithic, probably Neolithic use of the landscape, but obviously it's all mixed up, so you've got bits of glass in it as well. And that's a nice flake. That's a bit ropier though. I'm just wondering if there's something sort of Bronze Age later going on here, because there seem to be two very distinctly different qualities of the flint work, really.
And we've put in another test pit at the highest point, where some Roman finds were discovered in previous years.
That's fired roof tile, not modern. So, you know, it could be medieval, could be post-medieval. What's it like to sieve?
Easy. Unbelievably easy.
Beautiful view. I mean, this is just... But actually, I mean, the view is quite an interesting point in its own right, in fact, because actually that kind of aesthetic sighting in the landscape, you know, this would be a nice place to have a settlement. It gets you above the immediately floodable area, and we've seen how floodable the area is from all the sort of silty deposits down there. Yet you've got all the resources at your fingertips and you've got an uplifting view.
By the end of the day, we've had finds from prehistory to modern day, but nothing Roman. Inside the northern feature, our best guess is that we're seeing clay extraction from the 17th and 18th century clay pit. But we're still none the wiser about the possible dock where we've hit water.
Striking water was exceptional. That was really neat. We were hoping to find a ship, but you know, we thought maybe we could find some boats. But
you never know. It's probably about 2 centimetres.
It might be.
Although our test pits are finished, we'll continue our investigations in Riverview next week.
What we've got here now behind me are all the finds that are coming in from the trench, and these are all the finds that we found during our test pit survey. These are all going to be processed now to help us further understand the story of Sutton Hoo.
Our volunteers have become the latest in a long line going back to the 1939 excavation of the ship burial. Many of the team who worked with Martin in the 1980s have returned to take a trip down memory lane.
So the first thing people have to learn is how to work in a team, and it's a rather strange kind of job because you're working outdoors, you never have enough money, and the very first thing is to get used to being with a crowd of people, living in porta cabins, tents, using L-sands, all this kind of thing. And then you can concentrate, once you've got over that, you can concentrate on the scientific exercise that we do.
Some haven't been back since the excavations.
Yeah. So which means that the fire would have been here. So if we'd all like to sit down in a circle and sing a few rousing choruses of Bella Ciao, we'll be back where we were 35 years ago.
We've been lucky to have so many of the 1980s team bring their experience of the site to our dig, as we mark some important milestones in the history of archaeology at Sutton Hoo.
We do need to remember that while this is the 40th anniversary of our excavations, if you like, the foundation of this society, it is the 85th anniversary of the excavations in 1939, which of course has spurred all our activities since then.
And we're all on tenterhooks to find out whether we've found the rest of the Broomswell bucket and how it fits into the story of Sutton Hoo as it transformed from prehistoric settlement to royal burial ground.
Join a thriving worldwide community of Time Team fans on Patreon.
This will enable us to continue expanding the Time Team world. Enjoy front row seats for the greatest show on Earth and under it.
We're into our final week of our dig at one of the most important archaeological sites in Europe, Sutton Hoo. Over the last 3 weeks, we've been piecing together its development from prehistoric farmland to royal burial ground. We've pushed the story way back to the Mesolithic era. And now we're zoning in on when and why the Anglo Saxons stopped using the cemetery in Garden Field and began a series of increasingly spectacular burial mounds, culminating in the famous Warrior King's ship burial. And the contents of the exotic cremation vessel known as the Broomswell Bucket might hold the secret, if we can find them. Matt and Cecily arrived back on site to help Justin with the final push.
Well, the latest is we've taken most of the modern plough soil away, and we're in a buried soil which still has some plough damage, but we are defining cremation burials. We have maybe 5 or 6 of them, so there's a couple of nice ones you can see over there and sticking out the edge of the excavation. And then there's another fairly clear one here, which we had metalwork objects out of.
And there was finds in the topsoil above these, wasn't there? That was kind of giving us an indication of what was below.
So lots of little bits of sheet bronze, lots of bits of molten bronze, probably from either ploughed out of the cremations or possibly from pyre sites.
And I remember there was a huge metal detecting signal around here somewhere, wasn't there? So what's the plan there?
The metal detector signals have changed as we've gone down. So rather than lots of different objects, we think we have one large single object with a little group off to one side. We're also starting to get a little circular shape of plough soil with little bits of bronze sheet metal sticking up at the edges. So we have a bronze vessel of some kind.
Matt's put to work in the extension of the trench where the pipeline is now clearly visible. Over here is the exhibition centre, which was put up in the year 2001. But while they were digging the footings, they found an Anglo Saxon cemetery right under there. And we are excavating in that field over there because we think the cemetery might have extended as far as that. But while they're poking around looking for evidence, I'm going to have a look inside here because they've got some fantastic finds. Inside are sumptuous reconstructions of the gold and garnet grave goods that were found inside the burial chamber of the great ship in Mount 1. Bam! The gold! This is a shield, of course, and all this gold would have been mounted onto curved lime wooden planks, but boff, it's just so impressive, isn't it? And over here, what can you say about this weaponry? Absolutely glorious. But the creme de la creme is here. The King's helmet. Take a look at that. Although these are reconstructions, they demonstrate a level of craftsmanship which forced a recalibration of the idea of the Anglo-Saxon Dark Ages.
I think everybody knows that the metalwork that was buried in Mount 1 is of an extraordinary quality. That is pretty revolutionary. The textiles which we're finding, they're pretty interesting as well, and they have a lot of different colours to them. That's a bit of a revolution. And then the boat itself seems to be a revolution attached to a general change in the quality of carpentry. Anglo-Saxon houses, in the 6th century tend to be rows of posts. Each post is in its hole. And then you can tension it with cross beams, thatch it and so on. So that's a fairly basic sort of house. However, from the early 7th century, we're getting timber-framed houses. So there are long beams, there are wall plates, there are cross beams. 2 bits of timber are joined with scarf joints and and secured with pegs, with trenails. And that is what we're getting in our ship as well. So the Great Halls of Yevering are the precursors to the Sutton Hoo ship, in my view.
Something you said then, it had never crossed my mind before about this burial. When Queen Elizabeth II died, there were all these craftspeople and artisans who were making a special thing for the funeral, and they focused on the fact that they had chosen the loveliest thing. And in my mind's eye, that was a rather modern revisioning of what a burial should be. But of course, it would have been what happened then, wouldn't it?
The Broomswell bucket is itself a feat of Byzantine craftsmanship. And we're now pretty confident that we've got the missing base, because the fragments that have come up look very convincing.
That looks very like bucket. In fact, that's the best view I've seen. We've got a line here and a line there, and they've got the annular stamps, the circular stamps down here, another line there. Looks like some more stamps here, another line there, something happening here. That's definitely bucket. I very rarely work on anything as important as this that isn't gold. I know that sounds a bit weird, but somehow a brass, something that was made in brass in Byzantium, I just don't come across this in my ordinary everyday work, so it is incredibly exciting.
One man who can attest to the skill of the craftsmanship is Dave Roper, who reconstructed the bucket and many of the other treasures in the museum.
The Bromswell bucket, that one almost hospitalised me making it. I ended up with double frozen shoulders just from the repetitive hammering. That was about 3 weeks of raising, which is basically a 3-foot circle of brass sheet. You anneal it, you make it nice and hot, you slowly cool it, and you start beating. You leave the bottom of your bucket piece, which is the centre of your circle, flat, and you raise the rest. So the rest of your 3-foot circle is eventually compressed and brought in until you've got a saucepan shape. And the 40,000-50,000 hammer blows that it takes did take its toll.
We started getting some cremated bone again.
Right.
And we started to get a circle of grey, what looks like redeposited plough soil.
If we really have found the bottom of the bucket, we're hoping that some of the cremation inside it might have survived to tell us about the burial and the person cremated in it.
But I'm wondering, given there might not be much of the bucket left in situ, that there might not be a lot of the cremation left in situ as well.
Yeah. The thing with the burials, though, the cremated bone would normally be towards the lower end of any vessel that it's contained in. Usually, you'll get maybe 8-10 centimetres.
Because it's quite a big diameter vessel as well.
Yeah, you'd get about 8-10 centimetres left. So it can survive even in quite shallow deposits.
And sometimes it can be stuck to it as well, can't it?
Back in Tranmere House, the bags of soil, which might include disturbed cremations, are being collected for Jackie and Naomi to examine.
I would have expected we'd get some cremated animal bone, particularly if you've got something high status, because the early cremation burials that you get from the Anglo Saxon period, they really went big time. They were quite flamboyant in what went on the pyre, and there were quite often quite a lot of animal remains went on there, either sometimes entire horses, whole dogs, they're kind of like status animals, but you also had, food offerings, so you have pig, sheep, cattle, sometimes you've got bird, not very often. So I'm not put off by the idea that we've got cremated animal bone, and I can't, there's some bits up here which may well be human, that might be human, but that I think is definitely animal bone, but that doesn't worry me too much.
That's a stone, that's a stone. I think it's one of Robert Pretty's marbles.
We found a lot of scattered flints in the plough soil, and now Madeline has found a concentration which could indicate a workspace. It's hard to see features emerging in the sandy soil, especially in the strong sunshine. In excavations in the 80s, before the days of drones, Helen and the team would climb a tower to get a good look. So when in Rome, as they say.
Now, we have been thinking that is something like a prehistoric soil, like a plough soil or something, that has slumped into hollows or has been covered in some sand blow or something like that. But there's an alternative in that you can see just in front of Cecily, there's almost a blob of it that's stronger than the rest.
Really, really dark, almost chocolate brown patch there, isn't there?
Yes, absolutely. And there has been one where Richard is. Ah, he's right on top of it. That's why I can't see it. There's another one, and 2 human-sized blobs of soily fill.
In a cemetery?
In a cemetery, yes. Well, I'm hoping that they might resolve themselves as we clean and clean and clean into actually inhumation graves. Right. Where Madeline is with the pink shirt is another of these little blobs, but that one seems to be curving all the way down to the bulk, just in front of the little step where they're higher.
Yes.
Now, because they're higher there than they are here, I think it's going to take another trial definition to see it, but it seems to be a curving cut feature, which I'm tempted to call a ring ditch.
Right, OK.
I may be being a bit previous here.
A ring ditch of that size, do you think it could be the remnants of a burial mound, might have been surrounding a burial mound?
Yes, I think it could be a burial mound because I don't think there's enough domestic debris there for it to be something like a Bronze Age or an Iron Age house. But what date of a burial mound? And often this is done on size because Bronze Age burial mounds are big and traditionally Anglo-Saxon burial mounds are small.
Right.
But I would refer you to the large burial mounds that we have down there. So that's a work in progress, and we're not going to know until we've defined it a bit more. I would love it to be an Anglo-Saxon burial mound, but I know you're looking towards there, aren't you? Because you're thinking
Wasn't there a Bronze Age burial mound or the remains of one underneath where the visitor centre is?
There was a Middle Bronze Age barrow, and they thought that was the reason why the Anglo-Saxon cemetery was there. So if there's another one here, it might make a multifocal site, which might explain why we've still got the cremations and touch wood, the inhumations coming out this far.
We're completing our metal detecting survey of the field in an area where Roman pottery was found in the past, but everything that's coming up is much later.
A button? Is it a button? Yes, it is. So a worker's button, 1800, part of our history, you know.
So our Roman story is still a mystery. But at least we can say that we've done a comprehensive survey of the field and secured it from nighthawks. As the final week progresses, the temperature is rising. The team are barefoot now to avoid spoiling any of the delicate archaeology. Helen is examining a find discovered in an area of burning near the bucket.
I've got here 2 pieces of iron which came from close to each other in a bit of a black splodge, quite close to some other black splodges. And I thought at first when I looked at them, well, they're just 2 bits of iron. And then I turned one of them over and I thought I could see some textile or something like that. Oh, well, that is so annoying, isn't it? You can see my original hypothesis, there might be textile. We'll treat it as if it's textile. And very quickly, when you put brush to object, which is like putting trowel to earth, you don't find it. What I think we've got here, if you have a look at the screen, is this rounded shape, I think is the loop or the frame of a buckle. And if I pick it up and show you how thick it is there, that's quite unusual for something like a medieval buckle and a Roman buckle. In fact, that's absolutely characteristic of an Anglo-Saxon, an early Anglo-Saxon buckle. And then here, just here, I think that's either it's been made from a piece that's been forged around and not joined, or this is where it's rusted and broken through during the course of its life or its life in the ground. And then if I show you the other bit, now this other bit is just the right size to be the pin or the tongue of the buckle. And if I turn this over a bit, it's got a bit of a curve round. Now there's two reasons why you might have a bit of a curve round. Either because you're coming round to make the loop of the pin that would fit around the frame, or this is the pin attached here and it drapes around the edge of the frame. Now there's no buckle pin that does that apart from an early Anglo Saxon one. So I think, even though I can't find definite evidence like textile that it came out of a grave, I think this is very likely to be an early Anglo Saxon buckle frame and pin that has come out of some kind of grave.
Textiles were preserved on metalwork in the Royal Burial Ground, as well as in the earlier cemetery under the Visitors Centre, and this has shed light on Anglo-Saxon textile manufacture.
I'm Kendra, the forager.
I'm Matilda, I'm the head of the settlement. I'm Mildriffer.
I'm Sigbert, and I'm the spinner.
The textile group at Sutton Hoo has been experimenting for years to gain insight into the processes involved.
In Mound 1 we have 27 textiles. Even though the soil here is sandy acid, we have 27 textiles that where it's wrapped around a shield boss or a sword or a spear, it has mineralised and oxidised. And from those textiles, we know what sort of weave it is. It's tabby, it's twill or it's diamond weave, and we know the different colours.
They've built up an incredible skills base.
Give it a spin, let it just spin on its own, right? And then up here.
From drop spinning to carding wool, weaving, embroidery and knarl binding.
Hello, ladies. Hello.
Today, they're experimenting with a range of natural dyes and different metal pots.
What we started with was some weld and some tansy, weeds that just grow here.
What about this one here?
Oh, that one. That was really exciting. So that one is onion skins in here. And again, we've got quite a nice, vibrant yellow.
I have an outfit that I made, so it's an overdress. So I've got an underdress and an overdress, so it's the woad colour, it's the blue colour, and it's also decorated with the weaving, the tablet weaving.
Look at the detail there.
So if you'd like to,
yeah, I'd love to
try it on.
So can we talk about this blue colour, because it's kind of different
so
from everything
you've
else,
got a
isn't it?
complete outfit in blue, and I've got it on here. We call it royal blue because the other dyes, we've got the weld and the madder, are much more easier to dye, but woad, we need to put a piece of land aside. So weld is growing wild and madder, but woad, where people, if you were poor, you'd need to use that strip of land of yours for food, for farming. While woad, you're using it for dyeing.
Make sure we get that back off.
I know.
Oh, I'm running off now, it's mine.
Oh, it's a lovely colour.
Meanwhile, Naomi has set up her stripy flotation tank.
And so I'm not going to agitate it too much.
She's starting to work on the samples taken from the first cremation we found with the 6th century ceramic pot.
Oh, there's some bits of bone there. I can see some odd bits of bone.
Yeah, I can see some bits.
Yeah.
Ah, yeah, 100%.
It sounds like a very hot dog.
Yeah, it's making a weird duck noise. I don't know what's
panting
happening.
noise at the moment.
Oh, look at that. Oh, look at that.
Oh, crikey, that's good.
Now, that's going to be great for who's ever going to be identifying that charcoal.
Yeah. Well, that's likely to have been sort of some of the brushwood type stuff that they put in to get the ignition temperature going, getting the fire going to start with.
Okay.
Rather than the big logs that would have been the structure itself that would have held the body.
Yeah.
Under the hot sun, the different colours in the sand are beginning to reveal features really clearly now. And Matt's hard at work in his area of the trench.
There's a kind of a browny, pitchy thing down there. And you can see over there, they've tagged out all the features as well. So yeah, it's looking pretty good now actually. You can really see all the cremations. And obviously the service trench down the middle is really clear. And hopefully with a clean like this, you should pick up anything that you haven't seen already. So that's another benefit of this. So this is it really, this is the last push before we start kind of getting down into the features.
That's the soil shape that they've seen.
And some of those features might relate to the grave that the bucket was buried in.
So say we've got a circle of buried soil around here, which is in fact the remains of a mound.
It's possible.
Right, Naomi, I've come to have a look at this piece of pottery.
Ah, yes.
Naomi's been sifting through the samples from cremation number 1
So that's the biggest piece.
and made a discovery.
Oh, right, yeah, you can see there is some bits of decoration on there, isn't there?
Yeah.
Quite battered, but it's there. Yeah, and it is
Little
thin.
dimples.
Yeah, that is thin.
Yeah, I wouldn't have expected it to be that thin.
It's possible it's from a different vessel to the one found in week 1. But that's not the only surprise.
Oh, that is a piece of worked bone. You can see how it's flat, and then you can see the little holes in there, the little decoration, and then like little tooth mark going down there. So that could be part of a composite cone that's been on the pyre. That is fantastic. Lovely. Now we've got one piece. There's going to be more. Wow, look, there we are. There's another piece. So we've got a classic ring and dot decoration, and then the two little lines, three little lines.
No, there's like 5 more bits. Look, one there, one there, one there, one there.
Yeah, okay, let's get all of those out because I don't want them breaking up any smaller. I'm going to get rid of all the other stuff. Right, I've got lots of things. So, right, well spotted, Naomi. Right.
Oh my God.
Right, okay. So, we're going to be able to put quite a lot of this together, I think.
Thank you, tank. Well, you know, before I was saying how we repainted the tank. So in honour of Mick, and look at that. Look at that. Day 1 of me being here. That's the 3rd sample. 3 is the magic number. And look at that, what's come out. I don't know what to say. For once.
Combs have been found in many of the graves. In the hanging bowl under the visitor centre, and in the royal burial ground, with the horse and rider in Mound 17, and in the bronze bowl in Mound 5. Although Mound 5 was the earliest of the mounds, it had a number of much later burials around it, known as the sand bodies.
These are flat graves where a person has been put in, normally with no grave goods, and it's been backfilled, and then they have decayed in precisely the position they are in. We don't just get the bones. In fact, normally we don't get bones at all, but everything like soft tissue stays. So you can see the details of the whole body. So it's a sand body, not a skeleton. And they were almost all in very peculiar and in some ways disturbing positions. You know, you look at them and you think, what on earth was going on there?
What do you mean by disturbing? How might they have been?
So here are some pictures. So we've got this one with the hands tied here, and then this one with no head, and this one with a head down at the bottom of their feet. Then this one is probably tied into this contorted position. They've all got really horrible positions. And that one is really one hand behind your back, one hand in front of your back. Then this one has the head chopped off, but then put back, but they're looking upwards. It's up at the top here are teeth where you'd expect the top of the head. I mean, they're all absolutely horrible. Now, the reason I remember all of these is because somebody had to be the model for the artist. So I put on a leotard and a pair of leggings and went and contorted myself. And I do remember that one where you had to they kept saying, get your hand further round behind your back and the other one underneath you. And then Justin took photographs of me contorted like this. And then Jules drew them all up. And the 3 of us produced these rather revolting pictures.
The sand bodies date from the 8th to the 11th centuries and were arranged around some post holes which have been interpreted as the remains of gallows. So the current thinking is that they're execution burials placed deliberately around a pagan mound as a punishment in a Christian era. Back to the 6th century in Garden Field, and Jack is lifting the remains of the cremation burial from which the pieces of bone cone came.
Right, so I'm right at the very bottom of this very heavily damaged vessel here, and laying right on the bottom of the sherd is a piece of that bone comb. But even better, there's actually one of the teeth surviving. They're really, really delicate, and we've lost them from the rest of it, but it's surviving here. Let's hope it survives lifting. So first off, I'm going to do this little bit of bone here. It's this little bit of comb. Right, that's good. These are the bits which I'm a little bit more concerned about. Come on, sweetie. Okay, right. I'm just loosening around it rather than touching the thing itself. Yay, there we go.
Considering how badly damaged the cremation is, the bone, the comb and ceramics are valuable clues to help us understand the person buried, as well as the date and status of the cemetery. Down in Riverview, children from Melton Primary School are picking up in Test Pit 10. But with it being the hottest day of the year, it's very tough going.
Do we just do this ourselves?
The test pits yielded a surprising amount of flints, which Madeline is fitting into the prehistoric picture she's built up of Sutton Hoo.
Wonderful little flint. People call them burins, or in this case, micro-burins. Burin is burin, which is basically like a little borer or like a little awl to make a hole.
And what kind of age do you think that is?
Microliths tend to be assigned to the Mesolithic period, which is Mesolithic, again lithic, so the Middle Stone Age, the time before agriculture in Western Europe at least. So it may be 6000 BC, roughly. Yeah. What a beautiful blade. It's lovely flint. What's interesting is that the flint you've just shown me, that burin, and this one, it seems to be the same type of sort of pale chamois coloured translucent flint. So even though my first instinct would have been to say, oh, Neolithic blade, possibly it might be earlier and maybe Mesolithic too.
But I like the idea here that we've got the flint and the river and the shells. So we've got, it's almost people using the river perhaps as a supermarket. You know, you pop down the river, get yourself some oyster shells, and maybe you're using the blades to maybe scrape fish scales. You've got some fish or something.
You certainly could, yes. Yeah. People perhaps imagine prehistory as just one long dark period, but not at all, not at all.
But none of this explains the intriguing boat-like feature on the geophys. So Naomi and Henry are looking for signs of old rivers and flooding events that could support the dock theory.
Let's hit the water table.
Oh.
We're well below the geophysics.
Yep.
Or the features in the geophysics. We're well below that. And what we know is there's a huge amount of alluvium. So there's been a lot of water here. And relatively slow water.
Henry's results suggest that the water levels have dramatically changed throughout history.
Henry did some coring, so he actually went down up to 3 metres in this area. Yeah. But his main point of interest really was in here, that's where he went down 3 metres, and he was finding silt. So that is quite helpful, because the trouble with this dock idea is it's not actually pointing to the river, which, you know, that's the way you should be launching a ship. Yeah. So if it's going this way, it must be going into a water channel that we can't see. So maybe Henry's result is showing us an old filled-in water channel.
Well, that's the old channel.
That would work, because down here is a really big spring which currently goes to the river that way. But maybe if its natural course was that way, back in glacial times, it might have eroded out a big valley almost down here, which is then slowly filled in, but was big enough maybe in medieval times to launch a boat into.
Angus, I know that the viewers will be saying we've got this fantastic, interesting looking thing here with all these parallel black lines on it. We've been here a month and the result is 2 tiny test pits and Henry investigating a place that isn't even on the anomaly.
Yes, well, the problem with test pits is they're not really the way to investigate archaeological features. They're more about sampling the ground and looking for pottery. That's what I would use test pits for. You can do a lot of damage with a test pit going down through stuff, especially when it's something as intriguing as that. So the only real approach is, a proper bit of excavation, I think.
Which we haven't got the time or resources to do this time.
Certainly haven't got time at the moment.
But at another time, do you think that that's a likely target for investigation?
It's definitely very intriguing, and I'd like to know what it is.
We clearly need to have another go at Riverview. But back in the trench, there's been a breakthrough. Helen's now completely convinced that the pieces of copper alloy we've found are from the Broomswell bucket.
Have a look at the screen here.
Yeah.
You see how there's a line and then this fine ribbing and then a line. Now this worried me at first because I thought, gosh, well that's not how the ornament's made. It's either made with a line or it's made with these lines of punch marks. If we look at the drawing, you can see that there are places where we've got a line and then a line to emphasise it, a straight line and then a line of punch marks.
Now we're sure we need to lift whatever's left of the bucket as quickly and securely as possible. So we've contacted the conservation team at Norwich Castle Museum to come and help lift it in the morning.
So we know that we are missing about a third, say, of it, and it will be no more than about that, and usually going down to nothing. But it could have slid out, leaving more contents.
I mean, it would be really interesting. Jackie, I really agree that it is very interesting, the idea of the sides sort of being lifted out and what that would leave, what that separation is, what would remain. It'd be incredible if there are contents.
It'll be an early start for the team tomorrow as they attempt to lift the bucket in a day without destroying the archaeology around it.
If you're enjoying this episode, you can help us tell more fascinating stories like this one. It's your support that makes our coverage possible. Join a worldwide community of Time Team fans on Patreon.
The big day's here, and the conservation team arrive early to assess how best to lift the bottom of the bucket, which is visibly protruding from the sand.
We're finding bits of upstanding copper alloy vessel, which seem quite solid. So the working theory is that the bucket might be better preserved on this half.
But I suppose the presumption is that it's probably quite fragmentary. The basic copper alloy vessels tend to be, in fairly poor condition because they've held water for so long.
I think we need to see it and know what we're dealing with, don't we?
I agree.
So Cecily continues the delicate process of exposing the surviving pieces of the bucket.
We could definitely use this as a blueprint and just take that piece and just move it around and maybe see where it fits in. Would that be a strategy?
And Helen and Neil are trying to find out where the fragments we've already lifted originally came from.
Yeah.
I just thought that I saw 2 little eyes there. And is that a little nose? No, almost certainly is the answer. It is not. Look at it long enough and you will see somebody looking back and smiling at you.
And there are more pieces emerging all the time.
Oh gosh, it's really thick.
Chunky, heavy as well.
Yes, it is, isn't it? I think it would be sensible to check not only are we missing, whether we're missing a bit, but whether that bit that was identified as lug really was.
Yeah.
Because this looks more like that than anything else. That's a real edge, isn't it?
The Broomswell bucket burial could reveal a familial link between the cemetery we're digging and the royal burial ground.
Moving from the possibly scientific to the definitely fictional, which we must do occasionally, I do think they're the same families. I think their ancestors probably landed here. They became the South folk. The big family owners here were buried in the cemetery that we're looking at the moment, and they acquired royal pretensions in the early part of the 7th century or late 6th century. So I think there are some very interesting indications. For example, burial in a bronze bowl, which happens in the cemetery we're beginning to expose more of in our present project. And that carries on into the royal burial ground. So the first burials in the royal burial ground, like the ones in Mound 5, for example, they have burial in bronze bowls, and so does 6, and so does 7. So I think there is a transmission of a sense of belief or a sense of identity or a sense of relationship that is being carried on there. So I wouldn't be a bit surprised if some of the two families thought to be buried in this cemetery that we're looking at now, I wouldn't be surprised if one of them got very well off and was very successful in battle and therefore was able to claim a leading role in the whole of the area of Suffolk and maybe the whole of East Anglia. Someone like Redwald.
If we can find suitable bone samples, we might be able to put this theory to the test and find out if there were two families buried in the fields or just one. Helen has now identified the piece Cecily found earlier.
And it fits perfectly in the bit of the lug that's missing.
Wonderful.
So we now have two complete lugs.
Oh, that's
which is great.
brilliant.
Please don't find any more lug.
No.
So what have you got?
Yeah, well, I've taken away the last of the plough soil intrusion, and it's coming down onto this sort of dappled, gingery brown soil.
Yes.
And you can see that there are flecks of bone in it. And we've got some upright bits of the bucket here. It looks as though they are positioned by plough damage.
Yeah, because the furrow's coming through there and they're all aligned with it.
That's right.
Oh, wow. So there's basically no change between where we know there's metal and here. It's exactly the same kind of signal.
And where the dappled soil is where the signal starts.
Yeah.
So we're starting to get a better idea of the form of what's left of the bucket.
Yes. Have you been able to see whether it's decorated?
Yes, those three pieces which are sat upright. The sunlight's quite harsh, but in the right light you can see the incised and punched decoration on it.
Oh yes, yeah, I can see it now. I can certainly see engraved stuff.
While work continues, Jack is sheltering in the shade, picking through the samples Naomi has cleaned from the first cremation, and has found more pieces of the bone comb.
You see if I put all that together.
Oh, that's all comb.
That's all bits of the comb. Now, you see that bit there? That's one of the plates with the comb teeth on it. You can see where the teeth would have been, and that is the little hole where the rivet would have gone through. So you would have had a number of these. The reason it's called composite, they're normally, as I said, about that big, and you'd have parts of that going all the way down, and then that strip would have gone down the middle to hold it all together.
This is so tantalising for the people who are looking on. I'll bring it round and show you in a minute.
The other thing we've got here are bits of the pottery itself.
That's a good bit.
That's part of the vessel. And then these are bits of human bone that I picked out yesterday, and bits of burnt flint, which was probably pyre debris. It would have been underneath the pyre and it just got heated up. So there's a whole wondrous plethora of riches there for us to work with.
These clues will be examined in post-excavation work, because how this person was buried could give us an idea of who they were and when they lived. And we're really keen to find as much as we can about the grave in which the bucket was buried, to help us add a significant chapter to the story of Sutton Hoo.
This moment's really exciting for me because I've been rushing about doing various interviews, looking at bits of archaeology. This is the first time I've had a still moment to look at this glorious bucket which is appearing. Cicely, where are we with the bucket?
We know where the metallic signature is. It's in quite a focused area, but we need to be able to see the wider grave cut. So we've been taking it down. One of the really interesting things is that we've actually found the trail of the plough furrow that probably was responsible for pulling the bucket up in the 1980s.
Where's that? Where can we see it?
It's a quite a sort of indistinct line, but it sort of comes across the feature through here and continues in that direction.
So it didn't actually go over where the bucket is now?
No, it really just seems to have clipped it, and it seems because it's had the handle on it that the plough somehow lifted it up through the handle, and the rest of it's torn off and stayed in the ground.
Have we any idea yet how far down this bit of bucket goes? Does it go like to the underneath? Do we get the bottom of it?
That is the big question at the moment, because what we're going to do ideally is expose the sides of it and get underneath it to lift it as a block. If we were to model it on what survives of the bucket that's on display, there's one side of the wall which is quite truncated, so it's possible that this peak that we're seeing here is the beginning of that. And if that's correct, then we might have about that much depth to go.
And if it is correct, then maybe it would fit on to the rest of the bucket like a little piece of jigsaw.
Wouldn't that be lovely?
Wouldn't that be fantastic?
Yeah, and the signature that we get when we take the pinpointer across it is very strong, so fingers crossed the base of the bucket will be in reasonably good condition.
Are there any marks on it, or is it just all flat?
Yes, on the outside we can see the same incised decoration that's on the extant piece.
Oh wow! Oh, I can just yes, I can see a little
the
mark
sort of
there.
linear lines, so there'd be part of a figure, part of a dog, part of a warrior, something like that.
That is really exciting.
And these are quite resistant to movement, which suggests to us that they are attached to something more significant that's still in the ground.
You said a couple of minutes ago that what you were after was not just the bucket, but the whole area around it. What might you find?
Well, ideally, we would be able to see the larger hole that the bucket was originally deposited into, and it's possible that this bucket is only one of several objects that were placed in the grave, and it's a bit of a race against time. We need to do it really carefully, but we need to be in a position to have it lifted and safe before the close of play.
And it's 2 o'clock.
Yeah, and
What
time's
time?
running out.
What time did you start?
6 o'clock. Yeah, and I can't believe that we're, 8 hours on already.
We have just one day to do it. Now that really does sound like the original timetables, doesn't it?
By mid-afternoon, we can see details emerging.
Oh, I can see a hand. Oh my word. Sorry, I shouldn't have shouted that out so loudly, probably.
Lawrence is doing photogrammetry of each phase of the excavation.
So it is broken off, isn't it?
We're trying to ensure all the loose pieces are rescued before we can lift the remains.
Well, we've got the side going down, which means it's going to be quite deep.
Oh, look, it's just fallen off.
We're certainly getting much more of the missing parts of the design than we could have dreamt of.
Oh, look at that.
Oh!
Wow.
There are letters on
Oh
there.
my goodness, it's a face. It's upside
Show me
down.
the face.
Hair here.
Oh, like...
Look, here's an...
Oh, my goodness.
Well, I'm going to turn it round so you don't have to do that.
God, I wasn't expecting that.
So, there. Hello. That's the first time you've been seen for... what? Over 1,000 years?
Oh, well over 1,000, isn't it? Yeah, is it 1,200 years or so?
Gosh.
A face coming at us out of history.
Yes.
That's what you want on Time Team, isn't it?
That's so exciting. Who'd have thought that we would have got a face? The eye is in a kind of eye socket. There's the eyebrow.
Yeah.
Here's the brow and the nose and the mouth here. Cheek.
Yeah.
Yeah, edge
Possibly,
of hair.
yeah.
And then all the hair going off up here. I think these are African hairstyles, and I think that this is an exotic scene. that it's almost like it's an exotic scene from Africa, and the Anglo Saxons to the Romans are almost as exotic and barbarous. I mean, of course, we know it was made in Byzantium, but if we thought it was made in Anglo-Saxon England, we might think it was somebody with clay in their hair, like an Iron Age warrior.
But Byzantium is kind of pretty close to the North African coast anyway.
Yeah.
So.
When I say Byzantium,
Yeah.
I don't necessarily mean Istanbul, modern Istanbul. I don't necessarily mean Constantinople. It could be Antioch. It could be Alexandria. They've all got metalworking hubs. In fact, possibly Alexandria is the most likely.
So you're going to see people like this in the street, probably?
Yeah.
I'm sorry, I'm getting too enthusiastic.
It is just, I mean, yeah, it's a rather extraordinary thing.
Yeah,
That today
yeah.
you've looked on a new face that hasn't been seen.
You know, I'm so often asked what was my favourite find on Time Team, and I kind of groan really because I've answered that question so many times. But this has got to rank in my top 2 or 3.
It's evening and the bucket must be lifted tonight. But we're anxious to go carefully to leave as much as possible of the surrounding archaeology in place, as it may yet contain valuable information to help us understand the burial.
I think, should we make a start?
Let's do it.
So once Justin's confident that he's dug beneath where the base of the bucket should be, it's time to slide the block onto its tray.
Yeah, the whole thing's moving. It's going to. Right, so you want to slide it?
I'm holding it. You slide it. That's it. Brilliant.
Unfortunately, what we really need to do now is cut that down the middle and put the two bits. Can you do that in the magic of Photoshop?
Back in Tranmere House, Neil and Helen are beginning to work out where the missing pieces fit into the design.
This distance here, doesn't that give us the half-point circumference?
Yes.
Yeah, so then we could figure out how...
Yeah,
So,
and I want it to be here because the first bit that came out was that missing bit of lug.
so that looks like it goes here.
Yeah.
So it does feel like there's only one man potentially that is missing.
Yes,
And
we have found the missing man.
We found the missing man.
Yeah, it's the most extraordinary thing. You are only like the fourth, fifth, sixth, and seventh people to see this since 580 AD.
We're adding all these new pieces to our digital model as the information emerges. And as evening falls, we're ready to lift.
There's been so much discussion about precisely how we're going to lift this, hasn't there?
That has indeed.
Am I right in saying that lifting it up isn't so difficult? It's the moving it across that you're a bit nervous
It's much heavier than it looks. It's got damp soil, and obviously it's still very vulnerable. So we're going to try and move it as swiftly and smoothly as we can onto this sandbag here.
Are you ready?
Yep.
Ooh. It's a bit of a relief, isn't it?
It is.
What happens to it now?
So now it'll go to the conservation lab and be x-rayed so we can see exactly what's inside of it.
So the bucket begins its long journey to York, where it'll be micro-excavated. And the team gets some well-deserved rest. We've reached the final stage of year 1 of our dig, and we're revealing more and more of the story of Sutton Hoo. Cecily now thinks that she can see post holes around the bucket, which might be part of a pier structure.
We've realised that there are a couple of features that are close enough to the area of the bucket burial to have potentially been associated with the original funeral and the aftermath, and then the creation of a sort of burial monument over it. And they're really quite hard to see, but we've got at least one small post hole in here. It's just a really subtle change in the colour of the soil, so it's slightly darker. But if you look carefully, it's about 20 centimetres across, and there are very occasional flecks of cremated bone in there.
So this could be a rare bustum burial, like the other bronze bowl cremation found under the visitor centre. Some of the students from the local primary school have elected to help us populate our 3D illustrations of what the funerals of people buried at Sutton Hoo might have looked like. And Jack is getting in on the act.
That's so brilliant.
We've been careful to try to interpret the archaeology without destroying it. And the man who knows the site best is Martin.
Now this is, first of all, here there's a circle. So that matches the kind of little small barrows we had in the other cemetery.
So these were from a much earlier period?
I'm not sure. Could be Bronze Age, could be, annoyingly, it could be either. It could be Saxon or Bronze Age. And then there's a sort of lozenge shape here. That can be an inhumation grave. And in this area here, just where Jackie's trowel is moving now, you see the circle of stones. So that was a continuous circle. And that has a cremation in the middle of it, so that could be a cremation burial too.
We have come down onto a series of features, but really, apart from the bucket, we have no idea what they are. Is that a good use of resources?
Well, it's a reasonable question, but the point is you have to make quite a soft landing if you're going to get all these very elusive features defined. So supposing we decided to take another 4 inches off with a machine, then we wouldn't have seen that there had been cremations here at all, because they would have just come up and be dumped on the spoil heap.
Yeah.
But now we've been able to plot where cremations had been, even though they're broken up. But if you don't go down gently, then you miss all the latest features in the sequence. That's the logic of it. Of course, in a different kind of excavation, rescue excavation, we'd go a lot faster.
Yeah.
We'd get right down to the surface where the distinctions are clear, and we were seeing the very bottom of quite a lot of features. Now, we want to see all there is to see of all the features, because this is a research excavation in a very precious site.
So we think we located at least 5 burials, one of which may well have been an inhumation. There are some tantalising ring ditches, which we'd like to investigate further. And a cluster of flints at the end of the trench seem to have been a place where tools were made on site. More evidence of the landscape that the Anglo Saxons inherited when they arrived in the 5th century and began to bury their dead. And it's possible that the cremation burial Jack is working on marks the extent of the early Anglo-Saxon cemetery.
Right, we've got the remnants of this urn here, this cremation urn, and it's very, very crumbly. Is this pottery, so I'm just going to take these few bits and put them in a bag before I start my excavation so they don't get dislodged. And now I'm going to take out the fill of this modern pike trench that's gone through the middle of it.
And underneath the urn, 75 centimetres down, is the pipe that runs down the centre of the trench.
I was actually expecting something a little bit larger than this.
And that's why we didn't see it in the radar, because it's so small.
Right, yeah.
And we'd said 75 centimetres down.
We're determined not to miss any metal artefacts from the area of the bucket.
That's right.
Yeah, that's nothing in there. No.
Which could indicate a bustum burial.
We started to work on the theory that it's the remains of the pyre structure from the original funeral. Now, obviously, the pyre has taken place at a ground surface which we've subsequently lost to ploughing. But what will be interesting during post-excavation, when we took the plough saw down, the modern plough saw down really carefully, we had a fines distribution of what we call metal blobs. And it's possible that these were metal artefacts that the person was wearing when they were buried. They were melted in the intensity of the funeral fire, and they've just turned into blobs effectively. So mapping where they were, if they were in the vicinity of this, we might have actually captured distribution of the funeral pyre by the plough, which will be really interesting.
So the post-excavation starts as our month at Sutton Hoo draws to a close.
I don't know what to say.
We'll be back for our second year's excavations to try to find out if there's an Anglo Saxon dock down by the river and to continue our work in Garden Field.
Because this field is a microcosm of everything, if you understand this field, you can understand the whole of Sutton Hoo, including the mounds.
We've succeeded in rescuing one of the most important finds in this story.
Ooh! Oh my goodness, it's a face.
I'm sorry, I'm getting too enthusiastic.
We'll follow this beautiful bucket as it undergoes X-rays and scans. We'll be there with Jackie and the team as they take on the painstaking work of the micro-excavation in a bid to try to unlock more of the secrets of Sutton Hoo. And we'll try to find out why and how it became the burial place of kings. Join Time Team on Patreon to access exclusive 3D models, masterclasses, and behind-the-scenes insights.